Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Prevalent Evil Contagion, the show where we discuss all things related to Resident Evil. I'm your host, Renegade Operative, and we're going to be talking about corporations within the Resident Evil franchise. It's a lot of them, like big main corporations, either anti-Umbrella or pro-Umbrella, that cropped up throughout the series. So we're going to at least try to hit the major ones and give our opinions from there. I will first introduce Anthony, who is joining us today as a guest.
Hi, I'm Sonic Kick. I'm usually pretty. I wouldn't say I'm a casual fan of Resident Evil. I like a lot of the games, specifically the more the action type games. But I'm glad to be here and be talking about this. So yeah.
Next up is Silver.
Hello there, guys. Back again. More Resident Evil, so all aboard the Resident Evil train. Choo choo and all that.
Next up is Riolu.
Hey guys, Devon Rylu here. You can just call me Rylu, and I am the self-proclaimed Resident Evil lawmaster. But I have noticed I kind of failed on the fact of not remembering Tricell.
I think, honestly, I did after RE5. They just became a memory, but like everyone said beforehand, they kept cropping up, so we will get to them over time.
Plus, can we state whether we are pro or anti-Umbrella?
Yes, you can. If you really want to put that in there, you can.
I'm definitely anti-Umbrella, okay?
Very anti.
Brandon, what about you? Introduce yourself, good sir.
Hi, your MVP is back, and I am pro Umbrella. I am pro Umbrella because fuck humanity.
All right then, so we got some humanity haters out there. We're gonna start off with the first organization, obviously the big bad, the one you know the most, which is Umbrella Incorporated. Originally funded by Oswald E. Spencer and his crew with Edward Ashford and James Marcus. Of course, everyone knows they are responsible for numerous outbreaks. They were under the guise of a pharmaceutical front for biological weapons and genetic engineering, and the main thing they were responsible for is the fall of Raccoon City. What do you think of Umbrella? I guess first we'll go with Brendan.
Well, I think of Umbrella.
Yeah,
Well,
and all the
these
notes
guys-
here. Yeah.
Oh, for starters, these guys are like the grandfather of the series. Without them, no, well, technically without Mother Miranda, whatever her name was in RE8, we wouldn't have Umbrella, but that we get that when we get there. So yeah, these guys were the grandfather of the series, right? Without them doing all their mumbo jumbo, doing all their DNA splicing among other things, we wouldn't have the series as a whole. So like, we gotta put some respect on their names. Well, respect as in thank you for giving us a good series, right? Well, in terms of their acts, whatever, right? I find it rather interesting that they were able to perform genetic and biological weapons so I guess soon, because given that the time period, Resident Evil takes place in like almost real time as us. So the fact they can able to do all this stuff like a lot sooner compared to IRL stuff, is rather interesting. Like as far as the founders is concerned, like the most interesting one is Spencer. James Marcus, you hardly see, and what you do see of him was in Resident Evil Zero, and he is quite the singing voice, to say the least.
Oh god.
And Edward Ashford, was it? He is in there. I mean, he gave us two abomination children. No, and fuck those two kids. But him, like, yeah, he's almost also a nothing burger for the most part, because the series always have focus on like Spencer, for example. Let's see. The outbreaks. How many outbreaks had they actually done throughout the series? On purpose and not on purpose?
Well, on purpose. The only thing I know is that they were distributing weapons. They were the ones that made Nemesis, all that other stuff. But other than the Raccoon City incident, which was a giant accident, I think that was it for the most part. And then it just sort of tumbled over into Umbrella Chronicles with Sergei and everything that was going on in Russia. So not a lot, to be honest, but big masterminds behind the scenes either way.
Yeah, then you have Albert Wesker over here just collecting their data and other resources. I didn't know Wesker was the one that caused them to fully fall under, along with the BSAA raid.
Yeah, he's the one that gave the master data at the end of Umbrella Chronicles. When he got all their data, he's like, "Oh, this is the summation of all of Umbrella on one disc." And then he used that in court because that whole court case was never like shown, but it was basically Spencer screwed. Now he needs to go on the run because all of his findings and the technological stuff got leaked. That's why he's in the place that he's in at the end of what is it? No, the beginning of Lost in Nightmares.
Okay, that's interesting because I didn't know anything about this actually court case they had. So that's interesting information there.
So you're done, Brendan?
Yeah, I guess that's everything I can talk about this.
All right, Silver, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, Brendan's already summed up one of the key things there. Without Umbrella, we wouldn't have had any of this. I mean, if we think about the legacy that Umbrella has left behind, even though it's long gone in terms of the current day series, it's a huge one. Everything does essentially start with them, and pro Umbrella for two reasons. One, I would love to have a couple of tentacles to thrash my mailman half to death when he forgets my postal orders. And two, one of the founding members of Umbrella gave us the best evil twin duo and one of the finest cross-dressers known to man. So we have a very, very good little combination there. I jest, do not take me seriously. But no, like, on a serious note, they did give us the groundwork that everything started from, so without them, we really wouldn't be where we are today. And I suppose if you want to go wider than that, the Umbrella Corporation is still one of those things that has a very kind of wide recognition in wider pop culture as well. Just if you want to go beyond the scope of the games, if you think survival horror and big bad corporations, one of the first like groups that people do think about is Umbrella. So a lot of recognition there, I should say. Also have to kind of give a little bit of, I don't want to say credit, but recognition, because I suppose for me personally, the most noteworthy outbreak in terms of stuff within the series, possibly personal interest, because I just enjoyed the whole Raccoon City situation as we saw it through the Outbreak games, was definitely the Raccoon City outbreak. I think it still outside of what happened in China in Resident Evil 6 hold one of the highest casualty counts of an outbreak, or have we got any statistics on that anywhere on the wikis on?
So
I think that was a different outbreak, but it was by a different company. But yeah, I think that might be the biggest, because that's the first time. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ren, but I'm aware that's the first time we actually see, like, we're in the gist of it. Whether it, like, I think one of my favorite things about like Resident Evil 6, like they tried to do, was like they tried to show you like this is what it would be like if like they put you in the shoes of like going through an actual outbreak in that scene, which was great. But yeah,
I was gonna say the actual statistic of people dying for Raccoon City was 100K, I believe. It was like 100,000 people, so they all perished when they dropped the bomb on the town, which is the highest. I think second to that is Tall Oaks, because I swear Leon says something like I lost over 70,000 people, so that's almost close. That would be like second, and that's it for like major death tolls, at least as far as we know.
Yeah, just adding to that, I'm sure Hunnigan in 6 says something around 72,000, so Raccoon City would take the cake there.
Yeah, for most people that died in one single bombing, yeah, Raccoon City is still king. It's very fucked up and morbid when you think about it.
It really is. Yeah, that's pretty grim. Pretty grim. But still, for that, the kind of a lot of the noteworthy stuff that people remember, a lot of it seems to stem from things caused by the Umbrella Corporation. I'm not saying that holds as much weight now with the modern law where it is, but for the longest time in terms of the series law, the Umbrella Corporation was a big player in absolutely everything. And for that, they'll still hold that kind of impressive place for me as OGs, probably regarded in terms of all the stuff I've just mentioned, at least. So yeah, would love a spare tentacle. Pro Umbrella. They're a pretty cool corporation. And it would have been nice, on a very small side note, to have seen a little bit more of the founders, because, as was just mentioned a moment ago, we don't see two of the three founders all that much. Marcus is like, yeah. It's one of those things where you just... The other two felt wasted, if that makes sense. That you could have done more with them in the time span we potentially had, but you just didn't. It is what it is. It's a personal peeve. Anyway, that'll do it for me, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna add my 2 cents. I think a perfect game to show all those founders would have been RE0, because they already had Marcus. They had the assassination done on him, and it would have laid more groundwork. Maybe if they remake the game, they could show more backstory with what exactly led to these decisions of Oswald doing what he did. Maybe get Edward's opinion. But I digress. For Umbrella, I want to say that, of course, the main thing about them is that people actually trusted them with pharmaceuticals. So it's quite eerie to know that you got all this skincare and all this stuff going on in background medicine that the town of Raccoon actually trusts. And there's been so many cover-ups to the point where I think the police chief was in their back pocket. So they were kind of like in on that. And everyone was like wondering like what's going on. Stars just came back after a gruesome mission. They're talking about zombies. What are they talking about? But nobody believed them. So Umbrella really had a stronghold, and they were shutting people up, and they had their own private military. It was absolutely crazy back then, which is why they're the most like biggest formidable antagonists of the series at that time. I will say I don't like the fact that they just dissolve them immediately, but there's a part of my mind that also says it was inevitable, because you're not gonna just have a whole town get infected and nuked and not get away with it. There's no way. So I did think it was coming for what RE4 did, and I'm glad that the Umbrella Chronicles expanded on that with Dark Legacy. Other than that, I will say that yeah, I kind of like that Wesker tried to do his own version of Umbrella, because it felt like a continuation, but it never really went to anywhere outside of Tricell, which is what we're going to talk about later. So I did think, for what it was, they were setting up some interesting groundwork, and already the damage was done for what everyone lost in Raccoon City. And that's what I have to say on Umbrella. Let's see here. Riolu, I want you to go next.
Alright. Okay, so Umbrella were, as everyone said, the originators of pretty much everything in the Resident Evil series. But they're only really like responsible for about 4 different outbreaks. And we didn't get to see much about the founders, which is very, not great. Could have done a lot of story stuff if they did a game about them. Just to be honest, I will say that I think some of the stuff that they did with the experiments was going really too far. Like injecting freaking bug DNA with the T virus into freaking embryos was kind of fact.
Yeah, I think their worst incident by far was still what they did with Lisa Trevor, because that was a child they were experimenting
Oh
on.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and everybody kind of knew about it, even the U.S. government, which they're complicit a bit as well. But the outbreaks I remember for sure was Raccoon City, which they claim was an accident. The same for the mansion incidents and the Russian Caucasus area where Sergey was at. I don't remember the other one except for I think it's the one on RE0. Because you could say it spilt out, T virus spilt out, and everyone got infected. So I do remember that one as well.
Yeah. Lost my train of thought for a sec there.
Oh no, it's fine.
Yeah, so yeah, Lisa Trevor was kind of like a fact up thing as well. Like when you see her, you can see like different viruses that have obviously been tested on her, like prototypes for the G virus and the what was used to create Nemesis.
It was I think the NE alpha parasite.
Yeah. Which freaking hate those freaking zombies in RE3 remake. Yeah, they're freaking terrifying company, especially considering the amount of trust that they had within Raccoon City, and they were one of the biggest, like, economic structures of Raccoon City as well. I mean, even enough to have freaking signs like on the "Welcome to Raccoon City" sign, they had freaking "Home of Umbrella" on it, which if Raccoon City was able to survive, definitely would have removed that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's a big crater.
Yeah, biggest crater. Oh man. So I mean, I don't think I have really anything else to say on the matter. Everything else has pretty much been covered.
Oh no, that's fine. I guess we could move on to the last person, which is Tony.
Yeah, something I did want to bring up something I really wanted to bring up regarding Umbrella is that, like, back on what you were saying, Ren, about like, how much they were able to cover up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So something I noticed, especially when I was watching something like, say, or when I was playing like Resident Evil 3, the remake, or even our Resident Evil Death Island, is that, most, if not all, the people of our Umbrella, like, they even keep their employees in the dark of what's going on, especially even this even applies to Resident Evil 3 original. But of course, you had people like like Carlos and Tyrell working for Umbrella, and they were just doing that, and they thought they were doing was just saving people. Same thing with a lot of the people in the military, like a lot of their lower ranking people, I've noticed, were really kept in the dark about what they were actually doing, because they just think, okay, we're Umbrella, we're a pharmaceutical company, and even though we have like a military, we're just going to come in and we're going to save some people, right? And I just find that really interesting, and I just find that really interesting. But then you have people like, of course, Nikolai in Resident Evil 3, whose main goal was literally to let everyone die and just erase everyone's Umbrella's involvement. And the reason he did that is literally just so he can get paid, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to watch the world burn. Like, he wanted to watch the world burn while he profits off doing so. So that's something I find interesting, and like that tied into when Resident Evil Death Island, the main villain of that, I can't remember his name.
I think his name was Dylan.
Yeah, it was like Dylan. It was some weird name, but like, not a weird name. It was like some very basic name I remember. But like in Death Island, something one of my favorite scenes in that is like it's kind of the same thing, except the reason he starts turning on like a lot of he starts turning on Umbrella, but like a lot of the corporations, and kind of does his own thing, his own evil thing, was because Umbrella forced him to basically kill his best friend, and like they didn't tell them that that the virus or whatever was like, if someone's infected, there's no stopping it or whatever. So like I find, and like so like they are very I find it interesting that Umbrella is such an evil corp. Like it is very everyone knows like in playing and watching Resident Evil that Umbrella is the big bad. But if you're living in that world, they're seen as like you know they're very much like before the Raccoon City incident, they were seen as like this really good and healthy company to work for. Probably you'd probably like if you were in high school or whatever, or like if you were in college, it'd be like a pharmaceutical company that you would want to apply for and get like a really high paying job or whatever for. So I think in the world of Resident, and I think that's what what's that what was the one multiplayer one that was with Resistance, right? Did Resistance kind of do that in a way?
Hey, I don't, because
Umbrella Corps.
yeah, there's Umbrella Corps as well, which featured people working for paramilitary. There's a lot of spin-offs that focus on them, but I would say that yeah, the ethics of Umbrella and what people saw in them were very different. Because they saw them as like saviors, people that could do no wrong, and it's kind of funny how it all just ended up where it's like these people trying to cure and save lives are ultimately the ones taking them away with BOWs.
Yeah, and I remember, I know Resistance really isn't canon. I remember that game was gonna have a story, but they but I remember, I think Resistance also had like test subjects, like, and most of those people were like college students or things like that. So jokingly, I think about the fact that maybe some of those people were people who did apply to like work at Umbrella, and then they were just thrown in, like they got the job, and then after their interview, they were just they were kidnapped, thrown in, and like, all right, you need to survive now. You signed the contract. Your ass belongs to us now.
Outbreak as well had like Yoko, and she was relatively young, but she was a researcher for Umbrella, so they were recruiting people like 19, 20 to come and work for them, and ultimately she ended up being a sort of biological engineer, virologist. So it's a lot of people they were getting on their side and that were affected by this whole incident.
Yeah. I think that like that to me, that's the most interesting thing about Umbrella to me is the fact that in the world of Resident Evil, a lot of the people there are like a lot of the people who worked for Umbrella were just humans who didn't know what the heck was going on. Who were just humans or people who thought they were they were doing good for the world, but they worked for Umbrella. Like Carlos is one of them and that sort of thing. Carlos Tyrell, whatever. Yeah.
So we need to move on to the next question.
Ren.
Oh, yes.
Ren, actually, I got a little side question to add, and this could apply to all questions at some point.
Sure.
All right, think carefully about this one. What is the worst crime, in your opinion, that Umbrella has caused? It would be directly or maybe indirectly, if you want to go that route. Think about it, like, from all the things, the bad things they have done over the years before their end, what's the worst thing you could think of?
I'm definitely gonna go with the indirect sort of Raccoon City thing, because I'm talking all those lives lost like that is insane. If I were to state another one, it's probably the operation on Lisa, because that was like not only did that go out of whack because she ended up killing all the scientists and animals as well, but mostly her whole family was affected by that, and the fact that she comes back and she haunts you later. So it's not pretty, and the fact that the government was in on it makes them no better. So that exposed a lot of people on that operation.
For me, I'm gonna go with direct. Is the what they did with the embryos, with the insects. I forgot what they called. Name's giving me.
Chimeras.
Yes, thank you. The chimeras. Like what they did with that was absolutely horrible. Along with the Lisa thing.
Yeah, it was.
Like, damn, those poor women.
Yeah, they like when they were birthed, like the mothers died.
I'm trying to think of also a worse crime for viral experiments.
Anyone else want to go with it though?
I think I always blame I blamed Umbrella Raccoon City on Chief Irons, in all honesty. I know we'll get to Stars, but I always blamed it on Irons because I think for him. I think out of the entire Stars unit, he was the last straw. I think personally he could have been the one to stop this whole thing, but then he got greedy and Chief Irons was just Chief Irons. Rapist pedophile, the rapist pedophile he was. So I blame him more for that and that story.
Yeah, big creepo.
I've got an interesting one here that I think everybody might have glanced over because it was only really mentioned when 2 Remake rolled around. The Orphanage. If you read between the lines with the Orphanage in 2 Remake, it is heavily implied by a few diary entries that you find there when you go as Claire that they are not only keeping the children there under the guise of obviously a humanitarian thing, they're experimenting on a lot of them. And can you get much more grotesque than that?
That was actually one of the plot points in the Welcome to Raccoon City movie.
It was actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was also going to be creatures, like child creatures at the orphanage, but they ultimately ended up cutting it because it is in the concept art. So that's kind of a shame, but I would have liked to see that because when Claire revisits there just to get Sherry, like how messed up would it be just to have them like roaming around the entire state and Claire saying, "Oh my God, are these children?" Like that would have been absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that would have been sick.
Yeah.
Another fucked up thing is, they made, the G virus, which is basically an incest virus.
Jesus Christ! But you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
One way of putting it.
It's literally what it is.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. Like that is just so true. It's not even out of pocket because it's so true.
Well, that didn't get uncomfortable quickly.
Yeah, that's something I blame Umbrella for. Anti-Umbrella, by the way, for me.
All right. If we're done with that little snippet, I guess we can move on to the next faction.
Okay, so the next faction is more Umbrella, but in a different way. So this is the Neo Umbrella that was introduced in RE6 by Carla. So what is your opinions on this? Personally, I'll go first so I can sort of set this up. I just kind of thought that they came out of nowhere. It's kind of one of those things where you see it in the trailer and you thought they were going to do a little bit more with it. Like you hear Neo Umbrella, I'm like, what the hell? So they're resurrected, but you find out that it's for Carla to cause a lot of chaos around the world, which I guess makes sense for that story, but for me personally, I wanted a little bit more out of that. Of course, you get these nice places. You see the Chinese mansion and everything, and it's all luxury. And you're trying to find out what the hell's going on. And you find out pretty quickly that like she's mostly the one behind it. I think the ultimate plan of her releasing the creature at the end to infect the water was absolutely insane, but that's why Chris had to get in and stop it. That's why I think his campaign is like the most important, because if he didn't kill that thing, I think everyone would be fucked, like 100%. So I did enjoy the telling of that story, but I feel like they could have elaborated more on Neo Umbrella. Anyone else want to go on this?
I could go next
Sure.
real quick.
Sure.
I would say like Neo Umbrella is probably the most worthless faction here, honestly, because they did borderline nothing. I'll admit this one thing though, like their biggest little experiment, if that gotten loose though, it would cause a lot more damage than some of Umbrella's experiments, right? Let's be honest here. Because once the ocean gets infected, kind of like how Revelations one type deal, if the ocean gets infected or whatever, that's GG's at that point, because there's no escaping that one. It's all in the water supply, all different types of water, and eventually that stuff will come to land. So like that one there is just huge W, right? But the people in charge and the motivations behind the company is just so hilariously stupid. Like Simmons, for example, all he wanted to do is like have some fun with Ada, but he can't get that, so he just made his wife into Ada. Like, come on, that's just silly.
Yeah, that was pretty stupid. And it kind of killed the villain motivation behind it. At least with Spencer, he was in the background, so it took build up, it took planning, it took a lot to really build that character, and his motivation ultimately made sense. Carla is just Simmons, I'm horny. I bomb Raccoon City, and I want to show Ada she doesn't reciprocate my notions, and therefore, now I must turn my colleague into that. It's very dumb.
Yeah, like to at least give them some credit though on this front though, they do have some good experiments, but that's only because they took the notes of Umbrella and tweaked it to make it stronger and better than what became other predecessors. So for the most part, like their experiments aren't even originally theirs. They just took somebody else's homework and just improved upon it. Of course, that's not necessarily taking away their achievement, but that's what they are though. None of the stuff is practically original. It's just homework stealing and improving it.
Yep.
It's almost like Resident Evil 6 was had a really rushed development, and they were literally trying to find ways to get people interested. So they made this whole thing in the story with New Umbrella rather than actually deciding on a really good plot to go with.
Agreed.
More or less.
Definitely.
Because yeah, like that's how I feel. Like I think Carla Radamus is probably the funniest villain in the entire series. They literally like she doesn't even like Carla doesn't even have like her own design. She was literally just a clone. She was literally a tease as like for Ada fans watching trailers. They're like, oh, Ada's doing bad things or whatever. Like what's what or like throughout the story, and like the twist is like it's literally a different person, and like that's just like that's probably one of the lazy. I think that was probably one of the laziest ideas that Capcom had so far for the series. But like, you know, like it's a long running series, so I'll cut them a little bit of slack. But like when it came like Neo Umbrella is so like is unironic. Like there's a lot of corporations that are forgettable. Neo Umbrella throughout this series, and Neo Umbrella is definitely one of them. Especially when I saw it here, I'm like, oh, that's Carla's. Oh, yeah, like the only thing I remember about Carla is the fact that she turned into like a giant. At the end of Ada's campaign, she turned into like a giant cum Ada or whatever. Like throughout the entire ship, it was just Ada but cum.
Jeez, I knew
Okay, it's turning
God.
left already.
What am I even saying?
Well,
Oh dear.
I'm just gonna say, like I said, just to double down, I think Neo Umbrella was cool in trailer, cool concept in trailer. It had mystery, intrigue, all that other stuff, but in the actual game, the execution is piss poor.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I mean, seriously looking at it, if I give my honest 2 cents, I can't be too critical, even though people know my stance on 6. It has softened, and I'm willing to give a bit of ground now, right? That game is very fun as a co-op experience, but just not as a single-player campaign. I'm willing to cut a bit of slack now. Anyway, I think it just suffers as a corporation, Neo Umbrella, from the, shall we say, the trying to please everybody approach that Resident Evil 6 took, essentially. And if we look comparatively to all the kind of villain scenarios we'd had up until that point, we'd had the Umbrella Corporation, we'd had Sergei, we'd had Wesker's grand machinations in RE5 and the downfall of Spencer, and we'd also had the Los Illuminados cult in 4, and every single one of them have more fleshed out and tangibly executable plans that just make more sense and have a bit more logic to them than Neo Umbrella does. That, and while the whole giant sea monster that could affect the water supply of the whole planet was undoubtedly cool, it kind of pokes massive holes in the T-Abyss virus in Revelations 1. Because I apply the logic of, well, if a giant hyper-infective sea monster can do that to the water supply, why couldn't the T-Abyss? So it kind of throws me on a bit of a loop there, but that's me. Not far from good, but not so much a bad corporation in the sense of it was deliberately bad. Like I said, just a victim of rushed writing. Anyway, that's my 2
Silver.
cents.
To actually comment on the T-Abyss thing, with T-Abyss though, it's more like an isolated type area thing, right? In contrast to what was in Resident Evil 6, that thing is like it's an intelligent monster because you see how it was able to adapt to whatever Chris was doing, right? So
Yeah, I
there's
can
this
see
big
that.
stark contrast between the two of them. So like with T-Abyss though, like sure it will spread over time, right? But you normally will stay isolated in one location. Just look at what happened at the beach at the beginning of the game. It didn't went anywhere past that point.
Yeah.
You
Actually,
know,
you have a
That
good
is
point there.
kinda
I
true.
hadn't taken that into consideration. Carry on, Ren. Sorry.
Oh no, I just wanted to add on that there was the fact that House, the giant monster, it was supposed to reproduce as well. So that's how it would be able to get around the water supply at a faster rate versus T Abyss, because once, I think, when it was released, it wasn't at 100%. It was like at 80 or something. So it didn't have the full ability to have that pheromone to sort of break out and multiply and mutate. But if it reached 100, hit the surface of the water, and mutated from there, it would have been global, according to the files and the documents and the reports. So at that point, it's like it's all over the place. At that point, they couldn't stop it, and the entire world is screwed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, when you look at it from that point, I hadn't read in that much detail, and when you consider that, what is it? Is it 80% of the Earth's surface is water? I think it's that high a number,
70%.
isn't it?
Yeah, 30% is
Yeah.
water.
I know it's a very large amount. Considering that water's everywhere, yeah. Looking at what you guys have just said there, because like I said, I honestly hadn't read in that great detail. Yeah, actually, I can see that. I honestly hadn't really considered that the T-Abyss was like isolated and contained, but yeah, that's just me. I can be unobservant at moments, and then it's like, oh wow, very obvious thing right in front of me. Didn't see that. Anyway, continue.
Oh no, it's fine. As long as we like just elaborate and we let people know, then it's all cool. I guess if anyone has anything else to say about Neo Umbrella, we can move on to the next one.
I do have something I just want to say.
Sure.
I will say that I will admit I am a bit sympathetic to what happened to Carla. In the
I
fact
agree.
that, she
I
got
agree.
completely affected, but still, the part of like going through RE6 and that, just with all of the things, it basically was just, bitch that was wronged goes crazy and tries to destroy the world for revenge.
Yeah. It's
Oh wait,
what happened,
sorry,
bro?
Byron, I got to you.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I think that, of course, she was the virus or whatever was being experimented on her made her mentally unstable. I do remember that being mentioned, so I can see the sympathetic cause there as well. But yeah, as soon as she went crazy, the entire world was basically up on the chopping block, so to
Yeah.
speak.
I
You just want to
imagine
do
it had
anything
Ada's
to get
DNA.
back to Simmons.
Oh, apologies.
What were you saying, Brendan?
I imagine Ada's DNA has something to do with it as well, because that's what else was required for her to look like her. So like, I don't know, two minds coming together, kind of screw it up.
Yeah, she went through that entire program, of course, by Simmons to go on missions and treat herself as Ada, which is why Ada she finds those recordings addressed to her, but it's really not. As Simmons trying to basically brainwash Carla to do all this foul stuff, which is why Ada's getting blamed for it. But anyone else?
One more note.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we forgot to ask the biggest crime they committed. Which one was the worst to you guys?
Oof.
Chris's men.
Yeah, his men dying is definitely a big factor, as well as, you know what, I'm just gonna say it. When Carla sent the missile to the city, to China, and everyone started getting
Yeah.
infected. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's the big one because of course she's the founder of Neo Umbrella and she had that plant the entire time. So China went under due to Carla. So I'm gonna say that's the worst incident and crime they did.
Oh, Loki, I
Yeah.
kind of forgot she infected China, but so that would rack up their body count double to what happened in happened in Raccoon City. If you want to go by all the cities they infected in that game,
Yep.
That's a good point, actually.
Europe, where Raton is in Europe, but I think that's mostly mercenaries though. I could be wrong. Then you have China, wherever city that was, and then you have Tall Oaks in Washington.
Yep. Missiles went out.
Collectively, that's a disgusting number.
Yeah, missiles went out. People got infected. Of course, they planned to have the president, infected as well because of what he did, trying to say he wanted to put the Raccoon City incident public. So yeah, 3 whole places got entirely infected by a bunch of purple stuff. Anyone else on thinking what's the worst crime for Neo Umbrella, or does everyone just collectively agree?
I mean, China is definitely bad.
You go, Riolu. Sorry.
I'm just the China incident was like probably the worst thing that has happened, like in Resident Evil, like largest count and that of like innocent lives ruined and that.
Yeah, I mean, by sheer population, China's cities are absolutely massive. Like, you look at the population of even a mid-sized Chinese city in present-day argument, and it will easily outweigh a lot of American, and British cities by sheer population. They are huge, a lot of their urban population, so you can safely assume casualty counts will be in millions. So, yeah, but by a sheer numbers argument, really. And I mean, let's be honest, because they didn't really particularly get well fleshed out, I think that's the only thing you could remember them for in any large detail, the China outbreak. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I will say that I do find it kind of funny that it's not had any mention since.
No, that is a point. That is a point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird that it the only time they mention anything relating to it in the timeline at all after the fact was Death Island when Chris brought up Piers, but even then that's like not mentioning the entire incident itself, just that Chris worked with someone to save his life. So I do find that strange that they have not talked about it since.
Just a quick side note. Just could I politely ask you all to be spoiler light on Death Island, as I haven't seen it just yet? Please and thank you.
I haven't seen it either, I will admit.
Sure. Like it's a small fraction of what is actually going on in the actual plot, because it gets a little bit crazier afterwards. But I'll keep a lid on that for now.
Oh no, like little things like, oh, this character was mentioned and that's fine, but just like, don't drop anything massive if you'd be kind enough, thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Well,
thank you.
See, this person, no.
Riolu, I will come over there, Riolu. I don't know where you are, but I will come over there.
Well, you see, I'm in this like very small town. It's called. I'm not actually gonna say the name of the town.
It's called blank for your own safety, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
But we're going to move on to the next one, which is Blue Umbrella and the Umbrella Corps. So just to give a rundown on this, Blue Umbrella is the private PMC that was established a little bit after Umbrella's fall. I think it was the Umbrella Corps first, which focused on a new fighting style called Close Quarters Effective Battle, which is something that is used to combat and fight BOWs and neutralize them specifically. And then it took them a long time to get this name approved in court because, well, Umbrella, they killed like 100k people. You're not gonna go through making a new company, PMC, without a legal battle, but they won because they earned the trust of the BSAA, and because they gave them resources, they were able to stop casualties and have improved mission success rates. The goal of Blue Umbrella is to right the wrongs of the past. What do you think of Blue Umbrella? I know this was established around RE7, so that's where I remember them from mostly, but Brandon, I want to turn it to you.
My general thoughts about Blue Umbrella.
Yeah.
Truth be told, they're kind of forgettable because they're only around for like technically 2 games, you know?
Yep.
And they're not that much different from the BSAA in terms of like, well, everything you do. So truth be told, they were kind of a wash because they don't return to my recollection in Resident Evil 8. Because Chris has his own squad, which is Wolfhound, right? So, yeah, these guys are admittedly kind of forgettable. I can't appreciate though their unique gadgets in Umbrella Corps because they have like this weird heated pickaxe and like this shield or whatever. I would think that would be more effective in close quarters than most of what the Resident Evil cast has in terms of weapons. Like, come on, like a knife versus a heated pickaxe. Like, I take the pickaxe any day. Also, yeah, generally speaking, no, I find these guys kind of forgettable. What's up?
Also, Hunk is the one that created this new style, from what I remember. That's in the lore is what they use. So I'm gonna make it short. They are definitely forgettable. The main thing that people kind of note is the stuff that Chris was saying in Not a Hero, where he was like, I don't know if I can trust someone with the name Umbrella again, but he's working for them. But he's like, you know, they're supplying him stuff. They're actually not being bad. He's keeping a close eye. He's an inside contact. So that made sense, I guess, for him to go along with it. If they did something fucked up, he would come after them. And they're trying to right the wrongs of the past. Now, granted, with a name like Blue Umbrella, I'm still curious as to what this PMC is doing. So hopefully, if they get around to RE9 and they explain this whole there's a mole in the BSA bull crap that's going on, that they actually incorporate this sort of turmoil between them and trying to stop them, that would be a nice gesture to see them do something on a grander scale. That being said, currently they are a mystery still to a lot of people. Even then, it's still people echoing the same opinion as Chris, where it's like, yes, it's Umbrella, but good. And the last time we trusted an Umbrella, a lot of people got screwed over. So there are fans still speculating that they're lying, which could be played up on for drama in the next Resident Evil. That's what I think currently of Blue Umbrella. I do like their weapons, which is the giant shotgun that Chris takes to Lucas's head, the Thor hammer shotgun. That's great. And I like the Albert pistol in RE7, not Village, because in Village that gun is a piece of garbage. And that's what I feel about Blue Umbrella in a nutshell. It needs more expansion with this whole PMC that's helping out other factions, but the lore behind it is kind of cool. It's just not enough to really put them in a dramatic situation, which is what I want, and I want to see them established out. That's it. Anyone else want to talk about Blue Umbrella?
Yeah, I mean, no, you go first, really. It's fine.
Well, you know, I just want to say with the whole, you know, fact of some people in the fan base believing, oh, you know, they could be lying and they're not actually good in that. Does anyone believe that here, or do you believe we can trust them?
Oh,
well, we haven't seen enough of them though, truth be told, so I can't even say I can trust them or not. Like, going by their actions, they seem to be more trustworthy than not. But again, we need to see more of them to sit here and say, like, can we trust them or not?
Yeah, one like DLC campaign to round off 7. I don't really feel is enough to kind of make an accurate judgment. I want to lean towards being trustworthy, but as Ren, just quickly linking into what Ren said before you continue, I think we do need that expansion before we can make that call, really.
Also, I will say I dislike the naming of their shotgun.
The Thor hammer?
They should have literally gave it the name of Thor's hammer, which is Mjolnir.
That that is a good idea. They should have done that. I don't know why.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Something that Silver was bringing up is that like about them being like about Blue Umbrella being trustworthy. I find it I think about I whenever it comes to Blue Umbrella, I think about in the Not a Hero campaign at the end of it. You know how the end of it, like they're literally trying like you saw that Lucas was trying to upload some data and like they had to stop it, and Chris like literally forced themselves, like literally just shot the computer, and it was to fry the machine. And I remember Blue Umbrella got really mad about that. I think like they probably had like I think they're kind of shady too, because I'm thinking about that because they were like, the person who was talking to Chris during that time, they were very disappointed that, that they fried the machine. They probably thought they could, like, they could, it could go two ways. They're probably thinking, this could be, they have that information, so this can be prevented, or we could have used this information for ourselves or whatever Lucas was doing in order to, like, make our own bioweapons or whatever. That it might have been to, Lucas might have just sent it on the dark web and for anyone to pick it up, but
And I'm thinking to myself,
I like.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I like to think that they are, or were going to be, tracing it to its source. They were going to wait for it to, because obviously when things, are obviously been uploaded, they're going to be connecting to somewhere for that data to be stored.
Yeah.
I would like to think that they were intercepting it at its source, perhaps. Just as a thought. I mean, generally, I'm just satisfied that Chris Redfield did a Chris Redfield there and just took the direct approach. Man sees boulder, man punches boulder. Man thinks, ooh, computer system might be pesky. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's shotgun time. So,
I'm thinking to myself as well, like, they're doing good deeds, quote unquote, and helping the BSA reduce casualty rate, because, I mean, that thing was at an all-time high during RE6 and RE5, but at the same time, I always side-eye any corporation, because even established corporations, like you see how BSA is going down that dark route, is starting to unfold with all the disagreements they had with Chris. Now they're using BOWs. So I think a big point of contention will be the use of BOWs in battle and people being affected in RE9, which is going to expose the intention of a lot of corporations. So a private military contractor, trying to get as much research as possible, could be hacked, or someone could get in there or ruin it. I hope RE9 is a story where anything could happen, but for now, I will look at them and say, okay, maybe they're not bad yet because they don't have much expanded upon them, but I am side-eyeing because of all the people that went corrupt and rogue in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always good to have that little bit of skepticism just in case. But I mean, if they ultimately are turning out to be good, I don't mind that either, because we do need those factions now that the virus is all over the black market and anybody can make an outbreak. But that's all I have to say about Blue Umbrella. Anyone else? Oh, going once, going twice. Soul to the hooker and the tyrant and the red dress. Okay, so we're moving on to Tricell. Never mind what I said. They are a pharmaceutical company that was established in RE5, and they do pharmaceuticals, natural resources, and shipping sectors. So it's like they do 3 extra things on top of that, and they were ironically the ones who funded the BSAA. And then, of course, Wesker's research sort of happened, and it all went to shit from there. So, any thoughts on Tricell?
Oh, did you go first, right?
It's good. You're good.
I personally have a lot of thoughts on Tricell because I am actually currently I wouldn't say I'm like not actively working, but I'm like silently working on a Resident Evil 5 video. Just kind of like script writing it at the moment. But something I've noticed when I dug deeper into RE5, something I've noticed about Tricell, Tricell and themselves is pretty on the outside, like Tricell is, I would say they're probably one of the kind of a pretty messed, like I would say they're a more racially motivated messed up company in a way, right? You're gonna this I know this sounds crazy, right? But I think about it, one of the things they profited off of is like when like especially their African brands was literally using the people of Africa to like to work for them, and that was one of the major reasons why Sheva's parents were like were killed, and she had to live outside, and like that's why she kind of had to live with her. I think it was her uncle, and then like what happened with that was like, you know, she ended up having to go to guerrilla warfare. But essentially, a lot of what Tricell was doing was profiting off the people of Africa for years in this way, especially when especially at the village with the the interesting thing about the village in I think it was chapter 3 or whatever, you know, the one with
The blue people?
you know, the swamp village, yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about those people is that like they were just they were actually just a normal people. They didn't have a lot. They used a lot of those like their weapons and like their masks and stuff. They didn't use that. They were just literally a normal civilization. But the thing about the virus in that game, or what they were infected by, it literally regurgitated them. Not regurgitated, but it literally turned them into like it turned them essentially into savages, right? If that I think for lack of a better term, it's like the virus literally reverted them back to the type of ideals they were using back in the day. And like like I said, literally the reason they did this was for money. And there was and in that same chapter or whatever, you can find a journal by a little boy who was literally who had to experience like the whole transformation of his village. This is where I'm getting this information from. It's like right at the end, right before you go on like the gondola or whatever. But like you read and it's a really long journal, but like when you read it, you kind of see that like what's his Irving? I think it was Irving, right? Like when he came in with like, hey, we have the like the village itself had like a disease, but Irving came in and he's like, hey, we have this cure or whatever, right? Like we have this cure or whatever, keep taking it. And like the more they see and you kind of see how like it progresses, and like even the boy himself he decides not to take it first, but then like he sees how like it's affecting his friends, his family, he has to hide and all that kind of stuff. So Tricell is a pretty messed up company, and like a lot of what happened with Umbrella as well did I wouldn't say came from Tricell, but like Spencer originally found the virus in Africa or something like that, where you know that plant that they were using, that they literally harvest that, and that eventually turned into like and that eventually turned into was it the T virus, right? Or you know, yeah. There's a lot of viruses. Yeah. But something about I don't think like I know they seem forgettable, but when you dive deeper into RE5, I think they're probably one of the more interesting ones that kind of organizations that kind of get forgotten about. So that's what I wanted to say.
I'm in agreement with you on that one, Tony. Despite how low presence they have some of the strongest lore right next to Umbrella themselves, the original team.
Mm-hmm.
The fact they're able to control almost a whole continent itself is pretty insane. And that was only one branch, you know.
Yep.
So I definitely say Tricell definitely deserves a lot more respect than they get. Since how they only not also lasted longer than Umbrella for the most part. But the way they handle other shady deals behind like with governments and whatnot, it's pretty insane.
And they were essentially funding the BSAA, right? So that's like, yeah, they were the ones like, you know, Chris and Shepard were catered to be the heroes, but like, you know, they're the ones literally like they're literally working for the bad guys in a way. So it's interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I wish it was a little more commentary on, oh shit, we're working for the bad people this whole entire time. I know, like if they remake RE5, I would like to see those things they were doing with the RE5 campaign where Chris was making speeches about Tricell and how he was condemning them and doing all this stuff and actually feeling guilty for the events of RE5 because it was completely under his nose that Tricell was the funders of this entire viral outbreak that was going on in Africa. So I think, of course, naturally, it's one of those gut punches that should be a little bit more illustrated. But when you find out and that they can do nothing about it, it's horrifying when you think about it.
It's 5 is actually my favorite title in the series, to clarify, and that's why I was looking into this. When I replayed it, I was just like, that journal kind of made me to look a bit more deeper. So
Nothing wrong with liking RE5. I think it's one of those titles that is crapped on massively by people for literally no reason. They did a lot to the lore, a lot of changes and aesthetics that were really interesting. So I really love that game and what they did with it.
5 aged better with time, all things considered.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like I
it
said,
did.
that
It
game
definitely
has
did.
some of the strongest lore, how it ties in with the previous games, more so than 4 ever could. And then sets up other stages for sequels, like with 6 and Revelations games, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So 5 is like a very, very important game that gets, like, at the time at least when it came out, it gets like no credit.
Even shows where progenitor came from with the flowers, because everyone's wondering what are those flowers. It's like, oh, that's the origin of the virus. So I'm like, oh shit. So you put it all together in that game.
Yeah. Oh, I think what we were saying about crap. You said what were you saying, Brandon? Very last thing.
I said 5 doesn't get enough credit, at least at the time didn't get enough credit for how much lore it has.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that because it was actually one of the highest selling entries for a while. A lot of people say like, oh, like RE5 failed. No, it didn't. It was literally one of the most highest selling games of that year and the highest selling game, one of Capcom's highest selling games for a very long time.
It still is.
Yeah,
it still is.
Yeah, the marketing of that game was astronomical. Like people have to remember, like before we even knew the announcement of Resident Evil 5 and we started getting teased by it, they came off a game that literally changed the industry. So the sequel was going to be highly anticipated, and that was RE5 in its place. Like people really wanted that game.
And you know, I could talk more about 5 later, but yeah, y'all go.
5 is incredibly interesting because it's one of those games. When I first played it when I was a lot younger, I never really respected or appreciated it. And now as I've played it again over time and I've really taken a lot more time and effort to invest myself in the lore and what it stands for and take a real deep look at it, it deserves a lot of credit for what it actually sets up, and I genuinely feel that if the ending to 4 is anything to go by, and 5 may, for example, get the remake treatment, and we see 5 from with the current horror aesthetic, it's going to be amazing. But anyway, linking back into Tricell, it was said earlier on at the beginning that perhaps racially motivated. No, I think it's far more simple than that when it comes to Tricell. A lot of African nations have been historically poor and really open to government corruption. And I think Tricell just saw an opportunity. What's one of the most destabilized continents with some of its countries? It's Africa. So they set up, they put roots down, they used their tech, their assets, their pharmaceutical knowledge under the guise of helping people, and essentially created one of the pharmaceutical juggernauts, essentially, post-Umbrella. And just linking back to what was mentioned about the journal, I've wanted to bring this up since it was mentioned a minute ago. That journal is really quite haunting.
Yes.
Because it implies that they were infecting people when people were then being infected. they were then saying, oh, we need to give you shots because this is an illness that you are all coming down with. So we need to give you more shots to prevent the illness. And they gradually, bit by bit, infected a whole community of people. And I still remember the last few paragraphs of that
Yes.
that diary specifically. One of the parts where the young boy says the women in the village, went to get water to try and cool everybody and help the children, but it didn't help, and then everybody died. And then gradually you hear the child slipping and regressing, and then he starts hallucinating, and he's like, feel urge to kill, body is burning, feel really, really good. And I'm like, damn, this is like Itchy Tasty, but a new version of it.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
It was good. It was quite good to read, actually.
Probably one of my favorite journals in the series. I like, well, probably one of the best things in the series, in my opinion.
It's really solid, yeah, it is. So just Tricell, underrated. I do sadly think a bit underused as well because they teased connections here, there, and everywhere in other installments, and sadly didn't follow up. You had Infinite Darkness where it was like, oh yeah, we're teasing a connection here, right at the very end. We haven't had a follow-up. They were also teased in the end of one of the CGI movies. I believe it was either the first or second one where they're going over that wreckage and you see the Tricell emblem.
It was Degeneration. It was the first one.
Thank you, Ren. And yet, sadly, not really followed up there. I think they just made a link and then sadly didn't connect it to anything. And I would have loved to see more of Tricell connected in the wider media, but that's just an unfortunate thing that didn't happen. As we've discussed over many podcasts, the Resident Evil series is vast, and we couldn't possibly pick up everything and connect every dot. We'd be here until we're all about 50. So, yeah. Anyway, just a few things I wanted to bring up, so go ahead, guys.
Well, what I'll say is brief. I do mostly agree with everyone that Tricell is definitely that organization that has been undervalued, but a lot of lore, a lot of history behind them. Obviously teased in a lot of places. They're also mentioned in Revelations 2, I believe, and not really a lot has happened with them as far as like just these connective dots go, but I do find it interesting that, of course, naturally speaking, they could obviously enhance it because, once again, remake, so they could just simply do that and put more of their workings in there, and any sort of prequel that goes beyond them being dissolved in 2000 and what I think 11 or whatever, because that's when they ended, and because of course Chris naturally was going to go to court with everything that he found, and he said, oh, they violated human rights, so we gotta do something about this. I liked the fact that not only they had their hands in the BSAA in terms of funding them, but they could also tell a future story where it's like, oh hey, this mole that tried to kill Chris or whatever with this biological guy on the plane in Village, how about we tie that in and we get some disgruntled person from Tricell who probably lost a lot of money when Chris reported them, and now he's taking over the BSAA, and naturally, of course, because of that money trail, he can do that even though the investigation took place. I think that could create a very interesting story and still continue the fact that they still have connective tissue with the BSAA, and finally they turn corrupt, so it means Tricell in a weird way won, if that was the case, because they still managed to take BSAA with them to the grave. I like that idea a lot, and hopefully they explore that, but for current events, it was kind of cool that this sort of was utilized as the final resolution for Wesker to do his experiments for Ouroboros, which was very cool. RE5 seeing that and seeing how he's doing the right to be a god stuff, trying to harbor something new that Spencer never could achieve. So that is something I also like because it's tied to one of my favorite antagonists. So I think overall they had their use in the series, definitely a lot more useful than Neo Umbrella, but as for the connective tissue, that remains to be seen, which they could always enhance in the future.
Mm.
So that's what I think about Tricell. Anyone else? Any comments on them?
I
we can
will
also ask
say.
an important question. I'm sorry. Go ahead though. Let you finish your point.
I was gonna say that Tricell definitely seemed like the next, logical enemy in the Resident Evil series, considering their lore significance and connection via Albert Wesker to Umbrella.
Yeah, and the fact that he was using them as a front was interesting as well, because now it's like you have one of the biggest viral makers of the series, as Wesker used to be a scientist, now behind Tricell. So technically speaking, he has his fingers in BSAA and that, which led to a very fucked up situation, which is, of course, them discovering all of that and holding Jill captive and using her with the research that they had. So it's a lot of tissue going on with connectivity there, at least.
Yeah. I also like to say, talking about the journals earlier and that I like one of my playthroughs through Resident Evil 5. I was playing with this friend of mine, and every time we came to a journal and that, he would just read it in the Ugandan Knuckles voice, and now every time I see the journals, I just hear that.
Oh man!
Oh no!
I'm going to add to this actually, as somebody who's in the same circle of YouTubers as Riolu. Was it Novi or Envy?
No, it was my friend, which I did have a like sort of co-owned channel with them at one point called Two Jerks One Game.
Okay.
But we've stopped that now. They were called Nick Challenge Man.
That's fine. I will just forgive Novi and Envy for any suspicion and move on. We're good.
You know what? I think if someone did a reading someday of the final paragraph of the journal where the kid is transforming in the Knuckles voice, that would probably be the funniest thing ever.
Wait, Redfield.
Do you know the way Redfield or me kill that feels good? It's like
I'm trying not to laugh. It feels so wrong.
Oh,
Lord.
So right.
Somebody needs to just make that a YouTube video now.
Yes, that needs to happen 100%. It would be the funniest thing in the world.
All right.
But we need to move on to the BSAA.
We need to ask a important question though.
Oh yeah, the crimes.
Yes.
Oof.
What's the worst crime they done?
I guess that'd be pretty easy for me, considering the fact that they kind of decided to tell the people of that tribe that, hey, this is gonna make you feel really good. So they got them sick intentionally and then injected more of them so more of them could get sick. So that's probably their biggest crime, just the overall infection of Africa and how it got to the people.
I'm gonna say that, and also helping Wesker trying to blow up the planet with Ouroboros hentai creation, whatever it was trying to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because if Ouroboros was a success, then the entire world would be affected with tentacle monsters. So there's that too. It's like you kind of
Sounds like a Japanese dream.
No.
Oh no.
No.
Stop, Silver.
Very well. Sorry, Riolu, I apologize.
Anyone else on their biggest crimes?
One small thing adding to the current crime that was mentioned, obviously wiping out that entire group of people. I believe their community was called was it the Nadipaya?
It's hard to say.
Nadipia?
Nadipia tribe. I do know what you're talking about though. I just call them the Smurfs in RE5, unfortunately, because their skin is
Fair
blue,
enough.
so that's what they remind me of. I knew that was coming up. Ah.
Yep. Have fun, guys.
Yeah.
Anyone else on their crimes so far that they want to add on or no?
Not really.
Okay, we can go with Wesker trying to blow up Earth and of course affecting the African people. That's fine. Okay, so
Trying to separate the chaff from the wheat.
yep, that is a quote that he said. So next,
Mhm.
we're moving to the BSAA. So a lot of history here. So they are a unit that was formulated by Chris and Jill to combat global bioterrorism. What are your thoughts on the BSAA? Brandon, you want to go first?
You know what? They started out as a pretty kick-ass service, considering it started by the two the two main characters of the first game and the series in general, right? No, they started the series, and they managed to come together, grab some other people, and like, look, let's make our own agency, and let's take out bioterrorism. That sounds great and all. If only it was that simple.
Mm.
Now, over the years, they became a little too, say, corrupted, especially after Resident Evil 6. Though, but I'm wagering it happened a little bit beforehand. But what I do appreciate though in the early years is that they had to establish themselves because Revelations was a really good game for this one. Because the BSAA was not the de facto guys to handle bioterrorism. It was the was it FBC and the there's some other organization, right? Or was it just the FBC?
The
It
FTC.
I think it was them, and also I guess you could count Leon sort of a sword, where it's like the anti-umbrella unit that they established before it turned into DSO.
Mm.
Okay. Well, yeah, so you got those groups, right? But like after the events of Revelations, though, they fought tooth and nail to establish themselves as the go-to guys to deal with stuff. Unfortunately, though, good things must come to a sort of end because eventually someone got in and started like pulling little awful strings, and we see that in what was it Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 8? There's always like a starting point, but I don't remember what it was that though, right?
I think
Well, I guess
was it
What?
8? Because I know eventually.
It was 8.
Yeah, eventually over the series, it came to a boiling point with Chris and them to the point where he just said, "Fuck them! I'm just gonna do Hound Wolf now."
Just to add as well, there's a scene at the end of 8 where you see bioorganic weapons like freaking troopers been dropped in to try and contain things out of that attack helicopter. And even Chris comments, they're from the BSAA, and they recover that body at the end, don't they? And it's a bioweapon.
Yep, they do.
Mhm.
Didn't the bioweapon come from the European branch?
No, it was
They're in Europe. Was it?
it was North America. And they went to the European branch because they figured that part probably is not corrupt, but it was a North American BSA plant that was affected as a BOW.
Okay, because like I'm just saying now, like Europe always doing something messed up. I swear.
Thank you, we'll
Always
be here all
something-
week.
So like always them doing something. Like stop it.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you.
let's see. As far as BSAA though, I don't have much to say anymore because like they have such a rich history that if we go on too long, it will diverge a little bit. But I would say like they're a solid group though. But I want to see more of the corruption side of things for the next game. Hopefully, Capcom will wrap that up or continue it on because like they have a habit of starting something and dropping it within a game or two. And I want them to stop doing it because it's kind of annoying now.
Yeah, this is I would be thoroughly annoyed if you have dead BSA agent trying to kill Chris Redfield on a plane and not have this whole setup where it's like, okay, now we're allowing BOW affected humans in the military or any paramilitary group. Like, that's a big fucking deal after having groups to eliminate that threat for the longest time. Now they're going to live among you guys. So what is the ultimate deal? And of course, are you going to tell, the general population about this? Probably not, considering the fact that even Chris didn't know this was going on. So this needs to be resolved and like very quickly, in my opinion.
I remember people were like, I don't know if this was mentioned already, I just came back, but like I think people were mentioning that like they data mined the game and looked at the face of the BSAA soldier or whatever, and it kind of had like Chris's face.
Yeah.
Now here's my thing with that. I think they should go forward with that sort of with that theory because I think that would make it really interesting to know like maybe during when Chris worked for the BSAA they kind of took a little bit of his DNA and they've been basing a lot of soldiers or like bioweapons off of him, I think that would be something like that would be really interesting in my opinion. I think they should
You
go
know
for
what?
that.
I don't blame him one bit considering this man punched a boulder. Yeah, I'll take
Yeah.
his DNA.
Yeah.
And it would be an interesting angle though, because they were going to have like this doppelganger Chris thing for Revelations 1, but they decided to drop it for some reason. So
Mhm.
this could, be a little interesting little story bit for the next game. Have a bunch of mini Chris's running around confusing allies and whatnot, and Chris got
Yeah, and you can have like a whole scene with like Chris realizing it's like they're all like clones of him, and then like you can even tie that for a Resident Evil 10 or another, where like one of the clones escape and become his own Redfield or whatever. You could do like a whole Superboy Superman thing, you know? That like think about that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's pretty cool.
it kind of reminds me of that little plot point. I know it's crazy to say this, but it does remind me of this, like in Dragon Ball Z, where Cell is comprised of the greatest fighters, like Piccolo, Vegeta. He has their abilities and stuff like that. So they, now that technology in Resident Evil has advanced so much to where the timeline is now in the 2030s, you can hypothetically get away with cloning a human being and having that sort of as a plot backdrop, so to speak, because I've heard this from rumors, and now I'm thinking about it, they probably might go this route, but they did say in one of the RE9 rumors that they're going to focus on the idea of decoys and mimics, and that would be kind of amazing actually from a gameplay perspective and story. If someone you think is your ally or something, they turn on you, start stabbing you, like, okay, Truthman is trying to kill me now, so what do I do? So that would be kind of impressive, honestly, if they managed to pull that off, and we're in that era now. I think the main question people are going to ask is, are they going to clone people like Wesker and make that a reality? People were thinking that with the C virus. So it's like those questions will probably be asked. As for BSAA itself, I kind of got a glimpse of their corruption in RE5, because
Yep.
Chris was questioning them back then, where he's like, oh, do you ever get the feeling that you feel expendable? Or when he decided to cut off, because I think it was after you fight El Gigante Senior, whatever his name is. I know it's the one where he looks super old. They call it Nadetsu. But after you fight him, they explicitly tell him, do not continue to chase any further after the terrorists. Yep. And he says, no, I'm going to go and try to find Jill, because that's what I want to do. And he tells Sheva, you're free to cut and run anytime. We're not on BSA time anymore. That's the first instance where I saw they were actively disagreeing with each other. And then it continued in RE6, because I think they bombed the building with Chris and Pierre. They didn't give a fuck. They were in there. It was like, we're going to blow this up, get out in like 2 seconds or you're dead. And then it continued on further with RE7, RE8. So Chris has this whole entire history, his long-standing history of insubordination, which is why he, he really did not jive with his superiors after the whole Umbrella incident. And because he knew he was telling the truth out of what he's seen, and they were trying to cover it up with RPD. Right. He punched some guy out that was part of the team in order to try to help Jill out and say, oh, we're going undercover, but I need to get like suspended. And that's what he did, so to speak. So he has a long-standing history with doing what he thinks is right, and then other people telling him no, and BSA were telling him for the longest time that situation. So I think that for the most part, they were slowly getting corrupt over time, and we just started to see it unfold over and over. But what does everyone else think of BSA?
Just adding to something. Sorry, Riolo, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, after RE6, it definitely seems like the BSAA wised up to the fact that every time Chris is on a team, they all die.
Yes, yes, that's been called out plenty times, where, well, especially in 6, but I chalk up RE6 to him having amnesia, drunk amnesia, and getting people killed. So and plus a rage boner for Carla, so he wasn't thinking straight compared to his older self, so to speak. That didn't like come into fruition until like near the end. But yeah, under his command, a lot of people died. Just sort of like they say this about both Redfields. If you're under Chris's command, you're going to die. If you're a boyfriend or a potential love interest of Claire, you're probably also going to get killed in a brutal manner.
Yeah, well,
That's one way to put
Steve
it.
deserved it.
What?
Agreed.
Come along.
Agreed.
But any other thoughts on BSA?
Yeah, actually, just adding in to what was mentioned about Chris a moment ago, because I really want some clarity on this one point, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it true that written into his like backstory, even before he was in Stars, that he was in the US Air Force and he got dismissed for some kind of unprofessional conduct?
It was insubordination. So
Yeah.
whatever was going on between him and the Air Force coordinators, he disagreed with it, and they disagreed with him, and he got kicked out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
he did get his flying skills from there, because as you can plainly see, I think it was Code Veronica and RE6. He is very efficient in flying aircrafts.
Oh yes, very much so. Yeah. Just thinking. In terms of BSAA as a faction, we get to see them in action plenty of times. It's not like some of the other factions on this list where it's like, oh wow, we're in this for one expansion and we're not quite fleshed out yet. Or, oh wow, we were like the antagonists of a game, but a 17-year-old fanfiction writer could and has done better. We've seen the BSAA in action through Revelations 5 and 6. They go in there, they get the job done, oftentimes with an absolutely eye-watering casualty rate. But I think a lot of these people, if you look at it from a general perspective, they do what's got to be done, knowing the risks, which, let's be honest, in the world of Resident Evil, the risks are pretty astronomical. And I just think what they were before the corruption sort of seeps in is genuinely worthy of respect, because these guys would have been the front line for the longest time. And in a sense, it's both surprising, and I really hope that when we get to it, going to be impactful when we see the degree of this corruption and how badly they've fallen, because then we'll be able to see a force for good reach its ultimate outcome. And I just hope it's not something half-assed, because I think it was Ren that said this earlier, that they just have a habit of dropping things. Was it you, Ren?
No, I think it was Brandon.
It was me.
Yeah, Brandon. Okay. Yeah, definitely gonna agree with that. There is a bad habit of dropping things. And if there's one group I don't think would deserve that, it's the BSAA, because they've had a lot of build-up. And I've got to be honest, for me, the favourite appearance, for me personally, has got to have been Revelations 1. The first Revelations game is massively underrated, in my opinion, to begin with.
Amen,
And the amount of... Yeah, because the amount of lore it gives you in terms of factions, where the world is in this weird transitionary period where you're starting to see the beginnings of bioweapons going across the world. And just, it's a really good developmental milestone, and you see the BSAA's transformation from a small group that isn't fully in command yet, as was mentioned, to this huge and very important group. So we've seen their development from inception to early growth to on the battlefield doing what needs to be done. So yeah, I just, and I've said this twice now, I hope they get the resolution they deserve, and I think that's me for it. As long as they do, I'll be happy. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I also kind of liked that they have differing factions. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up real quick, but I know they had BSAA, Europe. They had the Africa branch from RE5. They also had a couple of other ones as well. I'm not sure if they had ones from China, but I know for a fact that BSAA North America had to go over there because it was all hands on deck. But yeah, I like their little badges where they were pretty much practically everywhere because they got approved by the United Nations.
Mm.
Let me see if I can pull that up. But until then, does anyone else have any opinions on BSA? Nope, going once, going twice. Alright, sold to the Ouroboros Monster and Red. Okay, so, oh, yeah, South America as well. They had one in South America too. So, it's plenty places they could go in the future, given the fact of this knowledge. I might try to edit this in the podcast on screen so people can see it. But we're gonna move on to Hound Wolf. It's not much for me to say really, other than this is the group where Chris Redfield sort of brought his troops over and said, we're gonna do this the right way. I do like that there's unique members in here, and it kind of makes me wish his section was a little bit longer, but you do have Umber Eyes, you do have all the others, and they have their own unique personality. So I kind of hoped that either they get like a meaty standalone side content game, or at least be featured in RE9, because you can learn much more about these people as we go along. Right now, other than them looking cool, the rest is a mystery.
I mean,
I'm gonna be honest. I'll make mine quick. Sorry.
Sure.
I'll be honest though. Like as far as like team based like stuff like this, I feel like Wolfhound was probably the best one because honestly they're the most competent.
Yep.
Well, none of them died, and two, they managed to lock down. Was it like 5 or 6 of them? They managed to lock down a whole village to themselves, and lock down on the end portion of the game where all the monsters are going to ape shit or whatever. Like they managed to lock that down pretty damn well, things considered. And there's only 6 of them.
Yep.
Keep in mind, now the BSAA was there too, on top of the madness that was going on. So like, yeah, these guys are pretty damn good. So I think they're the best team we had for Chris at least ever. Even better than Stars, better than on the BSAA themselves, even if they are Warform BSAA members. Like these guys
Better than Blue Umbrella, because like a lot of them died too.
Yeah.
They're even not a hero.
All the mechanic fought.
I
gotta stand by these guys. Like they're the goats. I hope to see more of them. Don't kill them off Capcom. I'll kill you. That's a kid. I'm kidding.
So let's see. It's Chris Redfield, Umber Eyes, K9, Night Howl, Lobo, and Tundra. I think what makes them interesting and why their efficiency is like super high is not only were these people that were ex BSA, but there were people that Chris picked himself, handpicked. So they're already like either being trained a lot, or they have high skill and they have blue umbrella weapons. So you combine all that with Chris's teachings over the years and trying to eliminate casualties, and that's why they're so good, because they had time to sort of fester even though the BSA was going to shit.
Yeah, it from like the way they talk to each other and that during the Chris section of Village, it does seem like they have a long history of like working together as a unit.
Yep, and that is exactly why I think they really got stuff done in Village, because of how they were taught and how they have that sort of the new weapons and everything, and their new equipment is like they are ready to deal with biological threats. Now I would say like BSAA was the test and Hound Wolf was the result.
Yeah. I want to add 2. I apologize. I wanted to add 2 that only one of them. This is not the only group that was able to talk back to Chris, right? And Chris actually, just took it, right? Because remember what I forgot which one said it. I think it was Umbrise, was it? That told him like you should have told Ethan what the plan was, right? Otherwise, now this would have happened. Like nobody else would have said that.
Oh yeah. And it's like maybe you're right.
on top of the dialogue being mentioned as well, and like highlighting their professionalism, the dialogue also just got you. It was very short and very brief, but it also just got you in the mood and the feeling that they aren't just a professional team. These are friends and comrades, and they get along, and they've got a really good back and forth. There is a bond here. And it also really got you in the mood hearing the comms chatter while you're just going full automatic on Wolfmen. I'm like, good God, I do feel like Chris Redfield here right now. This is beautiful. There's not a moment when I'm playing Village again where I don't get to the Chris section and think, here we go. The really action-packed bits coming. And a lot of the dialogue between the Wolf Squad really did help build that for me, so it's cool. It's all good.
Yeah. I will say, like, if we get like a spin-off game of these guys or a movie, I'm definitely going for it.
Yeah, I think they're like the Helm of Saul. I just want them. What? That sounds weird. That sounds so weird. The word thinking.
Yeah, you want them, all right.
I really don't have much to add. I just think they were a really good addition to Chris's repertoire, and it's something he kind of needs after so much, after experiencing so much loss. Oh, you know what I want to add? I just thought about it. Could you imagine the type of how many tests he probably put all of them through to make sure they qualify for his squad? Like, think about that.
That is true.
Oh God.
He probably had you think about he has boulder punching tryouts. Think about that.
I was about to say that. Can you punch a boulder? Get to that boulder right now.
Ready, set, punch. And it's just 5 giant.
I would imagine it was a process that was hard. And then not only that, it probably was once again remnants from BSAA, because before even suggesting that Pierce should take his place, they've known each other for quite some time before RE6. So it's all about being familiar with Chris and people having that sort of training capacity to either replace him or be near to his level or able to keep up with him. That's what I've speculated so far. So it's all built on more trust than anything.
Yeah. Also, about what Silva said earlier about getting to the Chris section, being like, oh, let's go and that because of all, the writing decisions and that between their dialogue and that. I have to say, I would not have that mindset on Village of Shadows difficulty.
Oh, well, that's
That's Village of Shadows, man. Nobody will argue with that one.
I have not played any of these on Village of Shadows, so to all of you who did, good luck.
I've beaten it on Village of Shadows on both PC and Xbox One.
Oh God.
I haven't played it
on
yet.
PS4. Holy jeez, man. That thing was actually hard.
The Heisenberg boss fight was the hardest part for me.
Yeah, that was the worst part of the game.
Yeah. 2 hits, you're fucked, and you have no healing.
That just sounds absolutely terrible. And when I get to it, well, I can't wait because I want to rage at it.
You guys all have fun with that. I'll stay in my corner on standard difficulty. Thank you.
Hey man, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, so we're gonna move on to the connections, which is a very elusive group, but it's interesting for several reasons. So the description for them is they're underground criminal network, and they were featured in Resident Evil 7, and they have known links to illegal drug and arms trafficking, as well as money laundering and biochemical research. Mia was a spy for them, and she was gathering research, and they were creating the mole extract. And the interesting thing about them is that they were working with Wesker behind the scenes when he was alive. So a lot of their research and a lot of dedications to that was given to them by Wesker. And the even weirder thing is that the BSAA thinks that their chief sort of CEO is dead, Brandon Bailey, but nobody was found, which I'm calling BS. I don't think he's dead. I think he's probably alive somewhere. So, what do you guys think of the connections for the little bit that you know?
I say they're kind of interesting. Cause wait, who do you work for again? Was this guy's working with Wesco or someone else?
They were working with old remnants of Wesker's Hive Host Catcher Force and Code Veronica.
Okay. Yeah, I do find these guys quite interesting because like they feel like the Illuminati in a way. Because like the things they're able to done or have done was more really underground. Like you mentioned, like trafficking, illegal drugs and all that stuff. Like it's more underground compared to everyone else, right? Where it's like selling bioweapons up front,
Yeah.
The only reason why they got caught with anything is because a freak accident happened, and that's when their little exposure happened.
Yeah. I think this group has the potential to be explored, but the difference between them and the other ones where we were like they didn't explore them like that often, or they're not explored in detail, so they're not as fascinating. This one is interesting. So and the fact that their leader, I don't know why the BSA would say this guy's like fucking KIA when there's no body left behind, and they automatically know that they did the same thing with Jill when they said she was missing in action, was probably dead, but turned out to be alive, and so did Wesker. So I think Brandon Bailey is out there somewhere in the universe, and we don't know where. And currently, for everything else they've done pretty significant stuff, and not even they have been apprehended fully as of yet. I don't count just we have Mia in custody and she knows a little bit. I think there's a hierarchy here that is clearly not being explained. And they also are one of the reasons why the BOWs on the black market got so big in the first place. Even if little is known about them, I'd say that is a pretty significant deal, in my opinion. So, anyone else want to talk about the connections?
I realize not much here, honestly.
Yeah, you're right.
They're a weird group because I've got to be honest. They're so vaguely alluded to in the game that they are really in that being honest with you, because I'm either one of two ways when it comes to reading between the lines on really cryptic things. I either go down the rabbit hole to the point where it's like, oh God, help me, I can't get out. Or basically, well, this one went over my head and I'm not really connecting the dots very well. And sadly, with the connections, it's the latter. So I didn't know a lot of the stuff here until Ren compiled it for us for the podcast. So I've actually learned some more by way of coming on here. So nothing really for me, but just saying that it's because they're alluded to. I sadly feel that given 7 and 8 so far, we might find otherwise with 9, but 7 and 8 seem to be a self-contained arc for the moment. If they don't decide to pick up any of the plot points in 9, we probably won't see any more of it. But I've got a very open mind. I mean, there are some people with this franchise, and we've all come across them in our time, been Resident Evil fans, where it's like, oh God, there is change bad. But I'm one of those people where, despite having scathing opinions of 6, from more of an execution standpoint, I'm open for change in the broader point. So I'm hoping to see more of the connections, really. And yeah, that's about all I've got to say.
I think the most interesting bit here is that they are a part of Wesker's work continuing, because if they are basically some collaboration, some leftovers of Hive Host Catcher Force, then this essentially means that even though this man is dead, his work is still continuing in a large way. So I think that it's important to note that, and where it goes in the future could be done in an interesting way, but of course we have to say the signature Capcom where they will drop ideas, so I'm hoping that they don't, because again, this is another one of those things where it's like if they don't continue it, it would be on brand for that company, because they have a lot of organizations they haven't touched up on quite yet to the extent that we want. But yeah, that's all I have to say about them so far. And like I said, Brandon Bailey not dead. As far as, because I don't know why BSAA just keeps doing this. That's a very stupid thing to say. Oh, he's killed in action, but we have no body. I'm like, if you don't have a body, then you can't verify. And we had this happen like 3 times already, man. You don't want to keep doing this. So I think he's out there. Apparently he's old, so, but that hasn't stopped anyone before. He could be infected with some virus for all we know. We just don't know until he's actually shown as a character. As for the worst crime they did, I would say, since they're behind the molded, everything involved with that and all the consequences of that basically came with it.
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
So creating Evelyn, not only that, I guess biggest crime would be adding to the black market, because they created so many other outbreaks unintentionally from other people. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the family. This might be another quick one.
Vin Diesel?
Not that. All we have is family, not those people. This is Simmons' family in Resident Evil 6, where he's kind of like trying to shut people up because he wants control to be the dominant power across the world. So I know last thing they did was they put a bullet in Carla's chest, and they also was like, hey, Simmons is here, leave him. So they might potentially operate without him. So any opinions on the family from RE6?
Honestly, I need more lore stuff about them personally, because I know little to nothing. Because they were like sort of irrelevant in contrast to Neo Umbrella for the plot. Because I haven't read all the files or anything like that, so I can't even like speak on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very, it's kind of the issue that Neo. Well, I would say slightly different. It's not the fact that they didn't they don't have interesting lore behind them, because they do. Unlike Neo Umbrella, where it's like we know Carla's clearly doing all these bad misdeeds. The issue is that we know next to nothing, and the fact that they continue without Simmons is a setup. That seemed like a setup to me, where they say, hey, let's just leave him because we're powerful enough as it is. And then you're wondering, are they still out there, stuff like that. But other than assassinating people and trying to basically have his philosophy of world control, we don't know much else.
It's implied in terms of scale and scope that they're basically the Illuminati, but they're so secretive that none of us even knew they existed to begin with. So they've done a good job.
Yeah.
They've done a good job on that front. They're so secretive, we don't know fuck all about them. So it's like the Illuminati, and wow, they're linked to this powerful family that was, organized by one of Simmons' descendants, but that's about it. We literally know nothing more. That is about it.
They came in quick and they got rid of everything that they needed to get rid of, that's for sure, because I kind of laughed when they had that like quick chopper scene and they turned around and then some guy just immediately like no-scope Carla, and that was it. I was like, how fucking fast do they work? Good lord, man.
I mean, if you look at them as well, it's basically 6 dudes with a chopper and Simmons, and that's it.
Yeah. So
Dapper suits, though.
That was absolutely crazy in that game. From what I see, I found them to be I found them to be a little bit more interesting than Neo Umbrella, but once again, is one of those things where it's like, what is everyone else doing now?
It's like less is more in this case.
Yeah, because it's not hard to understand who they are and what they do. It's just that since there's been so much political turmoil and changes in RE after they killed the president and everything, and clearly that was public knowledge. It's about what they would do after the fact.
I mean, they could
we
just
all-
CGI the president, right?
CGI him, make him AI. Yeah, they could do that.
Simmons AI.
Yeah. Be honest with me, everybody, collectively. Do we all feel that they will just end up being another dropped plot point, given their lack of
Probably.
significance beyond the few moments they were there?
Probably forgotten at this rate.
I know a lot of stuff from 6 was just left because not many people enjoyed 6 when it came out.
Considering the fact that 7 was a soft reboot and we have corporations in that game that has carried over and they're trying to focus on them, like Blue Umbrella or the Connections or BSAA, it's very, very hard to say they'll go back to something that was already in RE6.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
after RE6, I think, as you said with like the Death Island and that, like, there was a mention to 6 in that, and then there was also a mention to 6 in the Resident Evil Revelations 2, if you get the good ending, where Claire's basically asking Pierce to look after Chris.
Yeah, so it really could have potential if they really cared. I would say, putting the family in a Leon story or whatever, where they're trying to sort of clean up what happened after the president died, maybe that could be something in the future if they do it in one of these CGI movies, but that's all that I can think of at the moment.
I can see that working, actually.
Yeah, because already they were kind of on board with Simmons killing the president anyway, so it's like, why not clean up the rest of the refuge just in case? Anyone else on the family before we move on to the other ones?
I really don't have much to say about them, honestly.
Yeah, hey man, I don't blame you because their connection is very minimal to the series. But we have one that is kind of like beneficial to the series, and that's the Umbrella Security Service. So this is Hunk's team. Hunk's team, they like to do wet work for Umbrella, clean up things. It's sort of like a private army where they will go in and dispose of people leaking too much information or needing to obtain viruses. Like, obviously, this team, USS, is known because they went to go get Birkin. He didn't comply, and they put a couple of bullets on him, even though certain renditions where it's an accident, and there's others where they clearly shot him because he pulled out a gun. What do you think of the USS, the elite paramilitary group that was created by Umbrella?
These guys are pretty damn confident until that one dumbass shot up Birkin.
Yeah. I'd say they would have completed the mission if that idiot did not pull the trigger. Because, I mean, I think Hunk said they wanted him alive if possible. So they probably would have just shot him in the legs if he would have fired off that gun. But they wouldn't have killed him. The other guy just shot him center mass, so he's practically dying.
Yeah, that was in the remake. In the original, it also depends on the version of the story because they've been retold several times. All it was like Birkin did something that will spook the guy, and it's just okay. He's dead. Let's move on.
I think
in remake, he's like, "You idiot! Why did you shoot him?"
Yeah.
I think it humanizes Hunk, and I really did appreciate that scene in the remake because I think I thought something I really did appreciate how they handled Hunk in the remake is that like I feel like he is like a cold husk, and they kind of humanize him in the way, and like him and like especially when he's talking with his helicopter driver, he's just and you can tell this is a man that's also really focused on his mission. And then even so, and he's like, you know what, like go like I like it like he tells the helicopter guy to escape, but he just stops him. Like he had to make that conscious decision to stay for Hunk because he actually was like, he's gonna make it. He's gonna make it.
Oh yeah,
He's gonna make it. It's like I thought that was awesome.
and he did. It's like they don't
It
call me
also-
Mr. Death without a reason.
I
Yeah.
wanted to meet the Grim Reaper. Ah, so cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. It also shows that Hunk is respected and known for getting the job done.
Yeah.
Like the helicopter pilot had every confidence he was gonna come through. So
Also,
that, and I was just one quick thing, Riolu.
yeah,
I was
fine.
just gonna quickly say, because it was very, it was mentioned a moment ago when we saw them, or through the bit where we saw obviously Birkin get shot. The whole setup with the VHS tape was it showed them as a really smooth operation. They were professional. They were on point. They were locked on the actual job and what they were going to be doing. And it's one of the standout moments of 2 Remake for me, actually. It's one of those things where when I play the game, or when I've got like a memory of playing the game, it always stands out in mind that first VHS tape where you see them come down from the ceiling and essentially, storm the lab. Because it was, upon first watching it, it was like, damn, they're so cool and badass. And then Hunk's little outburst there, his exact words were basically, in fact, I remember his exact words. They were like, what the fuck were you thinking? Our orders were to bring him in alive. That outburst shows that, Hunk is a consummate professional, and he does not like it even when his own team make a mess of the job. So a nice bit of humanization there. Seriously. But no, sorry, Riolu, you carry on.
I was just gonna say that I cannot believe that Hunk ate the tofu survivor.
Punk's lunch is Punk's lunch got hands.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
in the original he still didn't give a shit even with context, because when when Birkin got shot, he knocked over a container which caused him to be like lit up. But Hunk just said like, stop, you'll hit the sample, you dumbass, and then he took the sample and went. Whereas this one he kind of berates him a little bit more, Mr. Martinez, or known as Ghost. But yeah, it's another thing too. Like, I hate that in Ghost Survivors there was unique versions of them like Ghosts, but they weren't explored further because most of them are dead. So I'm like, instead of just Ghost getting ambushed by Ada, what are all the other ones doing, since Hunk's fighting style carried over into the modern age?
No, that whole thing with Hunk in the remake, though, I would say that's probably one thing I would argue is definitely better between the remake and original.
Yeah, where he
Like,
scolds
it just adds more character.
he scolds
Yeah.
Ghost. Yeah.
Yeah, it just adds more character to him. So like, I would say like that's one thing remake definitely does better without question, in my opinion.
What the fuck were you thinking? We were supposed to take him alive. I did like that too. Also, they look cool, and I guess if we're going to be even more thorough and technical, I like the fact that they got their own game. I know that obviously they were at ORC, so people's mileage will vary, but the fact that we got to play as a USS was pretty interesting, to say the least.
I will say I have been playing that game like recently, and I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. I've been playing Four Eyes.
Hey.
I main Four Eyes, so I stand with that. Same for Vector. Four Eyes and Vector were my favorites in that game, hands down. And I thought, like, for a second, Vector could have been like really the next Hunk. That was his protege right there.
I think the issue with that game in particular is, one, it could have just been a lot better, and two, the characters themselves were fine. It's just Capcom did nothing with them, because obviously the game itself was not canon, so like,
Yeah.
there's that though. But they could have just took them, do like a air quotes reboot of them, and bring them over to the mainstream. Like, because the characters are cool, especially the Spec Ops characters. I like them as well. Like, bring them over.
To be honest, the main reason I originally got that game was because of all of the references to RE2 and RE3.
I was like, it had potential though, but no. Especially playing against professional, I just grown to hate it. At least, at least on that front. God, professional was horrible.
I just need to get some people to play it with, man.
I feel like the game, great ideas, definitely, but some executions are kind of, weird. I also think the control scheme is very stiff for what it is. You clearly play other third-person shooters. It could have been loosened up quite a tad, but I did have fun with it for the most part. Just a lot of the things that were presented are kind of wasted potential. And I also thought that the entire premise of the game, you can kill Resident Evil characters and it's just only, hey, kill Leon. I thought that was just kind of, lackluster in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like they could have did a little bit more with that.
Yeah, talking about controls, which controls are you talking about? Like console or PC?
I played this on console. I just feel though that maybe it's not so much controls, but the animations themselves are very stiff.
To be honest, I played it on PC and I thought controls were pretty good. The animations and that were pretty solid. I mean, I play at like 120 FPS. So.
Yeah, you play at a higher frame rate on PC. On console, it's locked at 30.
Yeah, I mean,
on the Series X, where it can be unlocked to 60, but other than that, yeah, it's 30 on consoles.
I mean, yeah, that's fair enough. It may, and like, also my experience was solely because of the whole fact that I had to deal with the glitch super tyrant, which is absolute anal beads, but it is a game that is fascinating. It's one of their more fascinating sub games compared to like others that kind of bored me to tears, like Survivor. But it doesn't quite hit that full potential that it could have got.
I will admit, one of the features I really did enjoy in it was the fact that, your squad and yourself included could get infected and turn into zombie, and you'd have to kill them.
Yeah.
Take great pride doing that one. One shot.
And I also like the whole conflict with Spec Ops and USS sort of fighting, although I kind of wish it was like their original vision where they were it was USS versus UBCS, because that was going to happen in Outbreak before it got changed. It had an entire dedicated chapter to those two factions going head to head.
I will say this about the Operation Raccoon Sea game. The amount of freaking bullets I put into Nikolai, and he's still fucking walking around.
Yeah, I sniped his head off, and I was like, oh, why is he not dead at this rate? And then it's funny because the cutscene still showed him alive. So I'm like, what was that for?
I freaking unloaded 150 bullets on him.
He was just like,
and he was still walking around.
I feel nothing. I'm giant Russian comrade, my friend. It's just like, God.
Sorry.
His wounds, they will be healed with vodka.
Oh dear.
But any other opinions on USS?
I do have one small thing to add with your mentioning Survivor, and that is somewhere out there an Ark Thompson is crying for you being bored to tears by that game.
Oh man, I don't even want to get started. I even think the third person demo is way better than the original Survivor.
No. I'm not disagreeing. Survivor is arguably crap. Like you all know my stance here. Like criticize Survivor till the cows come home, but be nice to Dead Aim because I have a very soft spot for that game, and it makes no sense. But it's maybe weird.
I like Dead Aim too.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
But
you've got something to say, Silver?
Oh yeah, sorry, my brain just totally blanked for a second. Sorry, it's nearly 2 a.m. Yeah, the UBCS they're a faction that is typically contained within the Umbrella plotline, but when you do see them, they do have an impact. And I think diehard fans of the series are always going to remember them, whatever, purely because, well, let's be honest, everybody really likes Hunk. He's a fan favorite. And Capcom knows this as well, because the dude turns up in as many mini games as he possibly can.
Yes.
So
all of the mercenaries, all of the raids.
So even if they are a faction limited to one area, they've definitely got a significance amongst the diehards of the fan base.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
I was just gonna.
Go ahead, you're fine.
Gonna say that the whole thing with. Oh, someone died.
Yeah, it was Anthony. He had to go.
So I was just gonna say the whole thing with how famous Hunk is and that among Resident Evil fans and that. So famous, he even got a female counterpart.
Are you talking about Lady Hunk?
Yes, Lady Hunk.
Yeah, that was in Revelations, I believe. I just
Revelations 1 and 2.
I just remember it being there, but that was about it. It was just there to me as far as the costume goes.
Yeah. I also say I like the stuff that RE0 did with the USS.
Oh yeah.
Though those two did get completely, they got made into the Leech's bitches in that one scene.
Yeah, they did. they were on the train like 1 second, and then I think Wesker was talking to them, and then they just automatically got like dissected.
Yeah, they were talking with Wesker and William Birkin.
Yeah, and then it just really showed how powerful James Marcus was back then. So I thought that scene was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I love that scene. Like that was one of the scenes that really got me into Zero.
But for now, I don't have much to say about USS. Does anyone else have anything else before we move on?
No, only really the Old English physicians would have been really proud of those leeches. They got the job done. They worked through armor, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, razor sharp leeches.
All right. Bitey. So we're going to move on through the last slew of factions that we have. We have Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, and this is the group that Carlos worked for. Any opinions on them?
Those poor bastards.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the best place to start, really. Like, they were mercs. A lot of them had reduced or dropped prison sentences to serve in Umbrella's little military group, but little did they know that they were basically being given the same treatment as the Stars were by Albert Wesker, and basically just been used as meat shields for combat testing.
Yes, they need to get the combat data.
Correct.
Yeah, they were fascinating in that vein of being criminals given a second chance, but little did they know that they had no chance against what happened in the Raccoon City incident. It was all just, we aren't prepared for this, like a lot of people, just like RPD and stuff like that. This is too much. We have to pull back, or we have to just fight to the death, which is what they did in the original intro of RA3, which is why that intro is just too iconic, too superior, versus the remake like Radio Line. I didn't like that. I liked them going down in a blaze of glory, throwing grenades and knowing that this is it, so we might as well just go down fighting.
What question we on?
We're talking about Carlos's unit, the UBCS.
Okay.
I will say I did like the the fact that they added the extra color section in the remake and really, got to flesh out his relationship with Tyrell and, how they operate in that.
I think issue.
Okay.
I think issue with the confidence level of these guys, right? Like I could understand if they never fought zombies before, right? But the game was called Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasures, right? How the hell these guys fumbled that quickly? You know,
I
like surely it should have been like a gradual process, right? Like look at the BSAA for example, or any other military group. They didn't fumble immediately. Sure, they could get overrun, but they hold the line a lot better than most, right? So surely these guys could have pulled away a little bit better. Maybe I'm overlooking it or whatever, but
I'm thinking
I
they were.
think-
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, adding to what was mentioned there, I think one of the Mercenaries' Diaries in 3 Remake does a really good job of pointing out just how out of their depth a lot of these guys were. Because I can't give you the exact wording. I haven't committed it to memory like the UBCS freaking. Oh, sorry, wrong faction. You know what I mean. It's getting late. The videotape from Hunk and his squad, but it was along the lines of, I've been through mission after mission, seen out comrade after comrade. I've served in war zones, but nothing prepared me for this. 30 or 40 heavily armed men, and we were all wiped out in a matter of hours. And if this is what hell on earth looks like, then I'm willing to just clock out now. And that was like what one of their diaries basically said. I'm sure you know which one I'm referring to, don't you? It's on the corpses of one of the UBCS soldiers in the city when you're playing as Jill in 3 Remake.
There's also the story of not only that, but the merc who died trying to protect the teenager.
Yep,
Like you see
that one too.
Yeah, you see the two bodies.
that was the original.
Yeah, you see the. Did I say remake?
Yeah.
Oh well, my
Some
bad.
to
My bad.
remake though, but that particular thing wasn't the original.
Yeah, where you see just the two bodies crumbled over, and it's just like, horrifying. It's like, even in the last moments that he had, he still tried to protect someone because he still had a conscience, even though he was a mercenary.
You know what I appreciate about Resident Evil 3, and this could apply to both original and remake, because both of them technically do this, is how they not only humanize some of the mercenaries though, but they also showcase like these people who are normal, like us,
Yeah.
caught up in a bad situation. And even in the dying moments though, they're doing something to either keep themselves busy or protecting someone, or yada yada yada, something else, right? Because you didn't get a lot of that in Resident Evil 2. You just got a lot of people panicking. And other like type of weird notes you get, either suicide and whatnot. Whereas in Resident Evil 3, they just at the last moment though, they're doing something to keep hope up, protecting, and all the other nonsense. So that's what I can appreciate about Resident Evil 3, both of them.
Yep. I think the reason why they fell so quickly, I was gonna add on to that, was largely due to environment, because and just the fact that zombies and all type of other creatures as well was like all over the place. So you had drain demos in the streets and dogs, which Nikolai commented on in the map in the remake. So they were just getting swamped. I think that group is better and distinct for like very small scale stuff, but on a citywide level with differing BOWs running around of different DNA hunters, everything, they were fucked. It was no way they were going to triumph over everything, which I mean, not only did they fall, but our RPD did as well as SWAT.
Honestly, going back to what you said at the very beginning, tongue-tied. Sorry, it's getting really late. What you said at the beginning, I think the scene that will always immortalize the UBCS has got to be that opening cinematic. No matter how many times you watch it, it never stops being awesome, does it? It's just so good.
Yeah,
it really is.
The fact that they start going down swinging and they know that they're fucked either way, that is one of the best intros in Resident Evil. It at least has to be top 5, no matter what.
Top 3 for me.
Yeah,
I will
can see that.
I will say, when someone says UBCS to me, my first immediate thought goes to Mikhail, popping the pin on that grenade and fucking up Nemi.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was already screwed anyway. Like Nemesis just beat him out of the subway chair, so he's just like, you know what? Come a little closer, and then he blows up like half the train car, and you see Nemesis's body. It's like, damn, man. I wish that, you know, it was a lot more dire in the remake, but still, I appreciated that scene for what it was.
Yeah.
Still enjoyed the remake cutscene. The "Get off my train, shitbird." Great,
Honestly,
love it.
I feel like we should move on because it feels like we're doing a dick measuring contest between original and remake. And we've done that enough times on this channel.
We have. Yeah, we have.
I mean, yeah, but since they were featured in both, you kind of gotta just talk about them a little bit. But I do get what you're saying. So we're gonna move on to Los Illuminados, which is the group that kidnapped Ashley and tried to sort of bargain and put the plug inside of her so they could take control of the world with the president. This group was fine for what it was, though I do feel like part of their downfall was basically letting in too many insiders, because you had Krauser, then Krauser was ultimately working for Wesker, and then you had other people get involved, and I didn't like how they were straight up telling their plans in the original to Leon, say we're gonna do this and capture him there, and it's like left wide in the open to where Leon could read them. So it was a form of incompetence, and I also think that, well, Salazar was a little bit, you know, dumber in the original, but outside of that, their influence and the fact that they cultivated this whole village under people's noses the whole time, and people that went there died, or the villagers themselves turned out to be eating their own young, is pretty disturbing for this group. And just the Plagas themselves and how important it was to the series and its mind control game, that's very dangerous in the wrong hands. So I do think they are formidable in a way, but one lone American cheeseburger went in there and shot everyone up, and that the whole group just ended extensively after that.
Yeah.
This part died on me.
Oh, we were talking about Los Illuminados.
My opinion on them was very based on either original or remake, because honestly, they feel like two different groups.
Yeah, it's the version where they're a little bit aloof and a little bit foolish, but they have a vision, a plan in mind, which is from a villain perspective fascinating. And then in the remake, I feel like because Sadler's playing a little bit more mind games with Leon, it feels like impending doom, because any moment now they could be just possessed and taken over. So the fact that it's in his mind is kind of trippy, but I did like what they did with it. It's just Leon was there, and ultimately their whole plan got foiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
would say that I would take the original group a little bit more seriously because they were a bit more direct with their actions, whereas in the remake they were more passive. If that makes sense.
I think also just some of the lack of like the dynamics that they had in the original, like of course, like I said, even though Krauser was kind of dicking them over and using them, and he kidnapped Ashley for them, and that was a giant asset to their plans, he still had that tie to Wesker in the original, where it's like now he kind of doesn't have it anymore, but it's a lot of power dynamics going on that were either lost or enhanced between both games. So
But the one that's lost for me is the Sattler himself, because you hardly see him in remake in contrast to original, and
Yeah.
I think the original sets him up better as villain than the remake.
I
So yeah, sure, a remake though, not the whole mind game stuff. You're right, that is pretty damn cool and trippy. But to see him and have him talk to Leon to try to coerce him to get on his side rather than just to force him, I think the original in that aspect does it better to better set up the villain.
I don't
Because we
disagree.
already know
He
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't disagree. He literally knows that unless this Plaga is not in Leon's body anymore, which it wasn't at the time, that he had an advantage. So it was just better to succumb now and join us before it's too late. But of course, it's Leon fashion, so he kept being resistant, which is why he started beating Leon's ass a little bit and trying to control the Plaga inside of him so he could submit. Which is, I mean, a lot of those scenes are pretty cool. The one where he smacked him into the machine, that was also cool. But it was more of a sense of control which they were doing, and that is sort of removed from the remake.
I will say, in
genuine.
Oh,
No, go ahead. You're fine.
No, I was just gonna say, with the whole talking about Sadler's sort of presence and setting him up and that as a villain, comparing the original and the remake, I will say that the separate ways in the original, where you have to fight him as Ada, and he just seems like impossible to kill, really set that up well.
Ironically, he was more a final boss in Separate Race than he was in his Leon's campaign.
I mean, he definitely
Ironically, that version of Settler was harder.
Yeah, he definitely seemed terrifying during that boss fight. I died several times.
Yep. Did that recently, and I struggled as well, actually. Just thinking about everything that you guys have been saying. First of all, a great deal of envy aimed towards this faction on my part, because they're the only group that's managed to successfully put something inside Ashley. I've wanted to do that for a long time, and I've never had the opportunity, so the Los Illuminados did what I never could.
To be honest, I think they should just keep Ashley. She is so freaking annoying.
Or, as I've said, every time I come on this podcast, let me have her. Let me have her.
I will say the remake made Ashley a lot more tolerable.
I can fix her. I fixed her in the remake.
I find
she's precious in the remake.
A different reason in the remake. Her AI is just bad.
Yeah, but that's another story that we talked about. So,
I just remembered something about Ashley in the remake. The first battle where you have Ashley with you in that, I was trying to snipe a bunch of the Ganados so me and Ashley could get out of there. What does Ashley do? Run right into the line of my shot as I fire. And I killed her.
Nice.
It's like the original all over again. It's like, oh yeah. But
you should.
Hello, PTSD flashbacks.
But I mean, like I said,
I was just gonna say, on a serious, non-me perving on Ashley moment for about the 12th time since I joined this community, I genuinely enjoy the direction that we went with the Los Illuminados in the remake compared to the original, and I think that also ties largely into why we see Sadler less. Now, hear me out. Capcom said in the development stage they really wanted to lean heavily into the occult aspects of the Los Illuminados in this remake. And you can really see that. There's not this kind of smug sense of self-righteousness or the campy element. That's been toned down, and it's not kind of as out there. But I genuinely believe that that's because you've got a situation where this cult leader and his various high-ranking individuals that are also helping him run this thing, it's like a situation of divinity. They believe that they are divine, and this is like a godly thing that they are doing, and it's almost like God's will, something that's transcendent. And you really do see that with like Sadler believes his bullshit here. He's drinking his own Kool-Aid, and you see that at the back end of the remake when Leon has removed the parasite right before the final encounter, and he is like, "You have spurned the grace of our God. You're an infidel." and I genuinely loved that occult aspect. Do I miss the culty do I miss the campy elements as opposed to the culty? Yeah, but I love that atmosphere. It makes it so unsettling. And one scene that always kind of sticks with me, I remember from playing it in the demo, the bit where the bell rings, the Ganados put down their hatchets and their weapons, and they start to walk away. And you can just see them. They're kind of shambling along, and their eyes are glassy and lifeless. And it's just like the will of God has called out to us. They are completely entranced, and it was so unsettling.
And they just ignore Leon completely, like he's not even there anymore.
Yeah, because God has spoken. And I love that occult vibe. It's so good.
Yeah, normally it's stuff that I would expect from Silent Hill, but it's Resident Evil taking on the cult stuff. So I thought, at least for what they tried to do at that point in time in the series, it was fine. It was interesting. It was fine.
You talking about the remake or original?
Both of them actually, for at least attempting to do this whole occultist vibe. We never got anything like that before that game actually came out. So at least in the series, it felt like a little bit of a breath of fresh air, so to speak, for villains.
Yeah, I sure won't go back to what Silver was saying, like the whole cult stuff. Like, I actually don't disagree with that sentiment alone or mindset. I take issue with the lack of screen time the villains have in contrast to the original game. Because that, in my opinion, sets up the characters than what we got in a remake.
I can totally respect that.
More... Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's fine because again, we're talking about the head honcho having a lack of a command presence. Of course, while I thought it was cool they were fucking with Leon's mind, they still could have had that one interaction they cut, which was not present, where they're talking in the lab and it's when Sadler gets Ashley for the last time. I'm surprised that sequence wasn't extended. It was like kind of there, but it was not done in the sense of the original, where it's like he's actually physically attacking Leon and he has complete control at this point. It's just more or less Ashley starts to turn, which is cool and all, and then she just ends up headshotting all of the villagers there. I was just like, well then, that wraps that up. So but yes, the fact that they were experimenting on other girls, trying to see if they could, get them and ship them to the US or any sort of passersby, that was also just as disturbing, as well as, like I said, eating the children, or killing them because they could not handle the transformation itself. That's what made the entire sequence at the end of RE4 scary, because once again they started getting sick and you just see the village degrade into savages from there.
Yeah, I would also like to say one thing from the remake that I will admit I really liked Los Illuminados wise was when Ashley got mind controlled and put a knife up to her neck. Is basically, that I just thought that was great.
Yeah, it's nothing Leon could do but comply, which is why she got away.
And it,
oh, go ahead.
It also led, just quickly, with what Riolu said there, it also led into a really powerful scene where Leon finds her again. And she's like sobbing and don't come near me, I might hurt you again. And she's genuinely remorseful. Like the first time I saw that during my first playthrough, like live for my channel, I legit choked up for a second because I'm like, wow, that's actually a really powerful scene. And from what they started it with her being controlled to her regaining her senses, that was really cool. It was really cool.
I think during the scene where she was sobbing and that, I'm pretty sure I made some sort of like joke about, kinks.
What?
Oh dear.
Okay.
Oh dear.
left, turn left.
Turn left
Pause.
now. Well, I
Leave
think,
those to me in future, Riolu, please.
well, I think that's about it for Los Illuminados. So we could move on to stars. A lot to say about stars in my mind. Stars was one of the first like just badass hero units made. Unfortunately gone too soon because of course they got dissolved because Brian Irons is a corrupt piece of shit. But
And then I got eaten halfway through, so
yeah, so he did get his flowers, but it was one of those things where it's like if you were part of stars, you were special. It was, you had more elite training. They were handled to deal with complex situations. Of course, nobody expected the mansion incident that happened in 1998, and it was one of those things where again they just stand out. They all got their unique costumes and everything, their own stars pistols. So of course the Samurai Edge history is engraved because of stars, and you had badass characters that came from it, like Chris, Jill, Barry Burton, even Wesker. Even though he betrayed them, he was still a part of the original 11. So I thought that was super dope, and I really like their insignia. Everything about them just screams cool, in my opinion. So
I don't think of a reality where Raccoon City didn't fall and we wouldn't have the RP the way it is. In that future.
also, Brandon, you're slightly cutting out.
Oh, okay. So I do apologize about that. It's a storm here, so my Wi-Fi is all over the place.
Oh, okay, but continue.
So I was saying, can you imagine a reality where the Arkham City didn't fall and RPD was still up? Like there was like no corruption, like no Irons being corrupted, no bad guy Wesker. Like how that reality would be like.
I think stars would have thrived if that was the case, because then it would have been like we have this tactical unit that could deal with anything at this rate, and I think they would have been trained and honed more to handle biological BOW stuff. Because the thing about stars is the reason why they fell was two reasons. Not only because of corruption, but it was because of all the inside devious stuff that was going on, and they weren't equipped to handle situations like that. The only thing that I think Chris said in the newspaper report was that victims were being eaten. That's the only intel that we have in the middle of the woods.
Yeah. I will say, I love the way they set up in the original game, like these elite members of stars, and that, and then just how they all get completely fucked.
Yeah, it does set two precedents. One, like they hacked them up as badasses, but most of them got murked like they're nothing. But on the same side of the coin, though, if these guys could get murked by a handful of BOWs, then imagine the damage the cities would take if like a whole army came, right? Which obviously we see the results of it with Resident Evil and 3. So that them getting them burnt that early definitely did set a precedent one way or another.
Yeah, because it showed that, hey, this is something that is very serious. The more this contagion spreads, if it could kill this elite group of people with Bravo team, then imagine what it's going to do with larger scale outbreaks. So I think stars falling set the era of anti-bioterrorism teams getting stronger because of it.
Yeah.
And said that nobody is safe regardless how good you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a lot of lore as well. If you look into some of the extended stuff in comics and that kind of thing, that really does highlight just how well trained these teams were. Like, you know, both of them, Alpha and Bravo. I mean, Rebecca doesn't count as much in terms of an active combat role because she was a young woman drafted in essentially to fill the medic role. She was only 18. But the rest of them have got a lot of training. And just, like, if it hadn't have been such a hellish scenario that, let's be honest, no special response or tactical team would have been prepared for under any real circumstances, they would have, yeah, as Ren said, still been going. And I do want to add that out of all of them, and even just in terms of like just deaths in the whole series, for me, there's still very few that reach the whole memorable moment the same way that finding Kenneth's tape in the remake and playing it back does. Like, it only runs for about 12 to 15 seconds, right? But you just see this zombie shambling towards the corridor, and the dude's like, no, move back, get away from me. And this thing just grabs hold of him and just starts chowing down on him, and you can just hear the gurgles and the crunching, and oh my god. That's pretty intense.
To be honest, the most memorable one for me, I would have to say is I forget his name. When that guy gets eaten by the shark.
Richard.
Yeah,
Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like he tells Chris, don't come over or something with the water, and then he tries to walk over and then he gets devoured. So that's also a thing as well with stars. Like, most of these team members went out like heroes trying to save their comrades and convey messages to them, like Enrico trying to tell Chris that he might be a double crosser because someone shot him, and it makes sense that later on you find out that it's Wesker the whole time. So it's that subtle little message that tells you something is not right with this team and something's going on from the inside.
You just talking about that just made me think of that freaking scene from the original RE1 where Chris just laughs at Wesker.
He's like, Chris, stop it.
What are you laughing at? Stop it.
Stop it. That was one of the things.
Classic.
That was one of the things I'm glad they changed to where Wesker just says simply, "Oh, you'll never understand. I'm creating perfection." It's the lines are just much better in the remake.
I hate.
Imagine going from. Oh, what?
I was just gonna say I hate how they cut out the Jill sandwich line.
It's a little bit of an alteration, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you would have fit nicely.
Imagine going from. Imagine going from Resident Evil 1 with Wesker to Code Veronica, like at that time period. I'm like, this is like a whiplash.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold up.
Oh,
brother.
Jesus Christ.
That's what happened.
He went from a weakling to a complete badass. He beat up Claire and Chris at the same time. What happened? I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, when Wesker was putting the moves on Claire, there was a part of me that was very tempted to switch on Chase My Bitch Up by Prodigy. So, nah. Yeah, because Wesker was going to town there, and I'm like, this borders on uncomfortable, but oh my god, he's proving the point that he does not like our brother.
Man, Wesker really likes the Redfield bloodline for a different reason.
Oh my god.
Complete global saturation, perhaps?
Oh my god, I hate you. Stars is badass. Their customized samurai edges are badass. I'm moving on to RPD.
Before we do, just imagine Wesker says to Chris, I'm creating perfection.
But before we go on to RPD, can I just ask a very important question?
Sure.
Go on.
Out of all of the members of Stars, who's the most attractive?
Oh, Stars. It's clearly Wesker.
Man, I don't know. This feels weird when you have to put it on the spot for males and females.
Yeah.
Jill and Wesker. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. No context.
I mean, if I had to choose both male and female, I'd go with Rebecca and Barry.
Oh man.
Oh, yes, the bear.
Riolu wants a family, man, eh?
Yeah.
Oh dear God, down boy, down. But as I was saying, we're going to digress very quickly. We don't encourage Riolu here. Bad things happen. Well, for me, I am going to say words. Sorry, guys, it's getting really late. Rebecca. Sorry, fellas. But so imagine, on the note of Rebecca, Chris says, wrong person. Wesker says to Chris, I'm creating perfection. And then it just pans to Rebecca in a cryo tube in her cheerleading uniform.
Dog.
I'm scared.
He's creating perfection, fellas. Mm-mm-mm. If that doesn't excite Riolu, nothing will.
I will say, I like one of the reasons I really like Rebecca is the fact that she's intelligent in that. She's got a good head on her, but also certain outfits from RE0, like the sports outfit and the cheerleading outfit.
I understand completely, man. I understand.
And the mystery will never be solved that Wesker has Rebecca's photo in his desk, and it was never questioned or never found.
We have skipped over something on a quick note. We have skipped over the fact that Bravo team actually play a small role in Zero.
Yeah.
Outside of Rebecca.
It was for them, man. Alpha wouldn't come there.
Yeah, it was I think you see the guy that gets his hand eaten off in the beginning, and then he turns into a zombie. Then you see the helicopter pirate, who they call him pilot, who
Arg.
Wait, actually, well, that kind of makes sense because he did get his eye chewed out in the remake, so he is a pirate now, all things considered. But you see him, and then he gets eaten later on, and it's just sort of setting up the downfall of Bravo team, so to speak. But anyone else want to talk about stars before we move on?
I believe the helicopter pilot's name was Kevin Dooley.
Yes, it is. Yes, that's him.
And that's all from me.
Yeah, that's all for me in a nutshell.
Move on.
Yeah, we can just move on to the next one, which is RPD. So this is pretty simple, just a basic police force of Raccoon City before everything started to go to shit, and Brian Irons is the chief of police, and he's a goddamn creep. This group is notable, though, for not only making stars, but they introduced the idea of rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy. So what do you guys think of RPD? Typically speaking, it's just like, to me, it's just like every other town. They would have a police presence, but I do like them for what they do.
I have 2 words to say about the RPD.
Go on.
Very corrupt.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Very.
Massively correct. Well, this was one thing we could probably summarize the RPD in a simple sentence, and that is Marvin is the guy. He is the guy. I've always just found him
a little boy.
Right, especially since the remake. His appearance was obviously expanded, and the interactions between him and Leon, though brief, are really, really nice. And you can see, even when Leon is older and a lot more cynical and a lot more well-trained, going into 4, he's still carrying that very same knife that Marvin's given him, isn't he? So he never forgot Marvin. He never forgot.
Yeah.
Just a side note.
Yeah.
And don't be Elliot. Don't be Elliot and get stuck under a security shutter. Things will happen.
I don't know which death was funnier, the original or the remake. The original, it's like he decided to wall himself off while zombies are chasing him, and then he gets eaten, shoots the helicopter pilot, and then gets blown up. And then in the remake, he tries to crawl through, and the zombie just eats him in half. So Both of those scenes are funny to me. I guess the way he was screaming was so fucking funny in the remake. But either way it goes, it's just a terrible situation. Most of those police officers ended up getting fucked. It was, and the SWAT part too is kind of cool in the intro of RE3 for the original, where it's like they're jumping out. You figure they got this under control. Here's the blockade, but no. And the last thing that you see is the walking zombie in the helmet of the SWAT officer, showing that yes, this city is pretty much screwed.
It's a very powerful part of that opening cutscene entry. Yeah, definitely. And every time I think of Edward though, like, sorry, Elliot, wrong one, Elliot. It's like the bit where he gets stuck under the security shutter, right?
Mhm.
And it's just like, I wouldn't want my lower extremities exposed to any kind of zombie's teeth, because do you know what immediately went through my brain when this guy was getting chowed down, and I'm like, oh my god, they're definitely biting his dick. A zombie is biting this guy's dick, and that's gonna be really hard. Oh no, I don't want. Yeah, I don't want my man junk chewing on. Thank you. Not in that context, anyway. Oh dear.
Okay then, that's a highlight. So, moving on. What else can I say about RPD? Their costumes are cool. It's quite funny that Leon is the one that got the prototype, as well as I think it was another prototype given to Kevin, if I'm not too mistaken. So those are the only two unique costumes that were looking like that. I think that was a prototype for SWAT. Because it was a version they were wearing, but one of them is like kind of blue. So I liked the whole bulletproof vest on top of that, and as well as the look and everything. That looked pretty awesome. So they have cool and unique costumes, but it does make me wonder who the hell designed the original interior, because it's like museum, no bathroom, gotta piss on the floor. What is RPD thinking? But yeah,
I never noticed that because someone.
me neither. I thought it was the locked door upstairs, but then I realized that if you go on the other side, it's just the door that Sherry was like near when she crawled through it. So I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where's the bathrooms at? Where do people piss? But they fixed that in the remake. They fixed it.
There is one toilet in RE2 original.
Where's that?
Where?
It's on the train that's on that lift that goes down to the lab.
Oh yeah, you're right about that. So you would have to stumble on that by complete chance, or know where the underground labs are in order to defecate.
Or the whole of the RPD just know it's there, and there's an orderly queue snaking the police station to use it.
The worst thing in the world. Holy fuck. But like I said, it gave birth to Leon, so that's the most notable thing, really. His first day on the force.
Yeah.
Handling a zombie outbreak better than most people did.
Can we also give some credit to Kevin Ryman, of all people? A down on his luck cop with a slight drinking problem that arguably went through a noticeable drinking problem, according to his lore and backstory. But, you know, arguably went through just as much hell, if not more, than a great many of the RPD officers. Still kind of did his cop duty with his kind of sarcastic, you know, very cynical outlook, and got out alive. Dude's a bit of an underappreciated badass, in my opinion.
As far as Kevin goes, I swear, didn't they say that he, at one point, he tried out for stars, but he was way too lazy, so he didn't get in? Kevin.
No, I believe you're actually right there. Like, he tried, but they basically said his work ethic wasn't up to scratch. I think the general consensus with Kevin was he had the potential to, like, come out on a pretty even keel with somebody even like Chris, but he just never used it.
He failed the screening test for stars twice, likely due to his carefree attitude.
That's very interesting. considering
Very,
how
actually.
insubordinate Chris is. But then again, Chris was like a expert crack shot, so his skills was more applied than anything.
Yeah.
If you
He
if you look in one of the, go ahead.
Kevin
fine.
did previously have a marksman competition trophy.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
You find it in Outbreak, yeah. He came second place
Mhm.
behind Chris.
Yep.
So just to think that if he would have applied himself a little bit more, he probably would have been on that team. But chances of survival, I am not sure. But if he survived the citywide outbreak, then maybe there's possibilities.
I mean, if he got into stats, he probably would have been a main character along with Chris.
Yeah, because the guy is very unique amongst all the characters in Outbreak. And this is one of the people I main all the time because I like his shooting ability where he does that stance and he does double damage with shots, which is Capcom. We need a remake of this game. That would be absolutely
Yes,
awesome.
please.
I would main that guy all the time.
I mean, I dread to think about him. If he'd have actually been on the Stars team, though, you could just hear an echo down the corridor. Yeah, give me that. Help me. Every 5 seconds. It would have been quite something. Excuse my terrible American accent that sounds Canadian. You can blame my girlfriend for that.
Oh, alright. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is TerraSave. I don't have much to say on this organization. Only that this is the non-government organization that Claire's a part of that helps out outbreaks and tries to assist people with medical aid. Is basically the humanitarian side of Resident Evil. So what do you think of TerraSave?
Claire's a part of it, so it's instantly the best organization.
Well,
we can stop right there.
Yeah,
that might be a little bit subjective, but I mean, it's interesting because it's one of the few that's like, yeah, we're gonna go in and try to help all these people because mostly these organizations are combat oriented, so they go in to kick monster ass and that's it. We never necessarily had one where it's like we're here to sort of help and heal people after this tragic event, and they kind of tried to do that after RE5 with Africa and everyone being affected, and they tried to go out and help as many people as possible. So it's needed, so to speak.
Yeah, they're corrupt.
Yeah,
they're corrupt. Yeah, Sasuke. I mean, sorry, Neil. Was wanting to justify the FBC again.
Yeah. So another mole snuck in, just like most of these other organizations, really.
Yeah, sorry about that. I tend to call him Sasuke when I play through the game because he's voiced by the same person who voices Sasuke.
Yeah, he's voiced by
Yuri Lowenthal.
Yuri Lowenthal.
Yeah, Yuri Lowenthal.
And he's also part of the problem where it's like every time Claire Redfield tries to get a boyfriend, they get tragically killed. But in this case, he deserved it because Neil's a dick. So
yeah, he freaking deserved it. Yeah,
he deserved to be shot in the head. Yeah.
I mean, so did Steve. I mean, I really think we should get back to the fact that Steve really deserved his death.
Oh my god!
When Novi hears the VOD of this, Riolu, he's never gonna stop, and it's your fault.
Steve went to kiss Claire while she was unconscious.
Okay,
that may be a slight consent issue there. Yeah,
that's
dubious consent, man. Dubious consent.
Dubious consent.
That scene did not age well, but it's one of those things where it's like I feel like Steve was enhanced either way. In which one was it? It was one of the Chronicles games, Darkside. They made him infinitely better.
Darkside.
So and
I can't front though. Darkside Steve was like the GOAT.
And
I have not played that yet.
He's voiced. You will like his rendition in that game, guaranteed. Trust me.
It's really good. It's really good.
And he's
I will have that.
He's voiced by Donatello Ninja Turtles from the 2003 show, so that makes him cooler.
Oh, Sam Riegel.
Yes, Sam Riegel.
Oh yeah, fucking hell! I love Critical Role.
Yep. So that makes him 10 times more cooler, in my opinion. But
wait, 2 members of Critical Role have been in Resident Evil.
Yes.
Yep.
Damn.
Matthew Mercer and Sam Riegel.
And just,
Yeah, freaking love Matt Mercer's Leon.
But going back to TerraSave, it like I said, it's definitely necessary, even though they got mulled out at one point in time. But it's something that gives Claire something to do. It's like because she didn't choose the role of fighter, like she said in Degeneration. So of course her goal is to help as many people as she possibly can, which is it adds her story to her being there in the first place, being invited, trying to help, stuff like that. So I like it.
I will say I do like the stuff they did in Infinite Darkness, where it shows Claire like working for TerraSave and helping with the humanitarian effort and that before she goes.
That was cool.
Investigating.
Mm-hmm.
But
I just find it sad for all that it's a humanitarian group, right? We only ever see it in a couple of CGI renditions and essentially little parts of Revelation stuff involving Claire. And sadly, I find it hard to take them seriously when they're described in that opening cutscene of Revelations 2 as the sopping mop that cleans up bioterrorism.
Because terror doesn't have to end with the wrist.
Exactly, Riolu. I couldn't take... you could have made it a bit less cheesy, guys.
Yeah.
I don't like the word sopping anyway. It does something to me. That's a personal gripe.
To be honest, my dad found that completely hilarious.
And just quickly linking back into Steve again. Yeah, of course that scene aged better than Steve. He's dead.
well, that's funny. That's actually hilarious. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Real talk though, linking back into Claire. If they're gonna do anything with Claire and TerraSave, well, on a slight note, if we get anything Code Veronica related, do Steve a justice and make his character decent. But I'd also like to see, especially since there's so many rumors with large amounts of the cast coming back in 9, all rumors and all speculation at this point, and we're probably still into early mid development if we're going to have any conjecture on where a 9 might be. But give at least Claire a supporting role and have TerraSave amount to something if she's still a part of it, because they're a good idea to explore. How many times do we see an NGO or a humanitarian aid group? We don't, apart from this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, like, despite the fact that everyone that seems to be Claire's love interest dies a horrible death, I'd still get in there.
I'd still form part of the queue, yeah. After Ashley. Ashley first and foremost.
We just got a gentleman up for the chopping block.
Claire is number 1 when it comes to Resident Evil waifus.
The gentleman up for the chopping block, as I firmly illustrated. But that's all I have to say for now for TerraSave. Is what Silver said. I definitely agree that you could put them in a situation where a lot more is going on with the group and Claire is involved if she's in RE9, and you could sort of you put her in a situation again where not that she gets kidnapped or anything, but that they are there to try to help the cause, and things only get worse because they find themselves in the middle of another outbreak. So we're moving on, unless anyone else has anything to say about TerraSave. We're moving on to the final organization of the night to talk about, which is the US government. Now I saved this for last because this is by far the most interesting one. Not only did they recruit Leon, but they also blackmailed the guy. Not only did they try to give secrets to William Birkin, but it caused the Raccoon City outbreak, so you could say they were indirectly responsible in a sense. The government has done a lot of corrupt stuff in the timeline, and people's main question is, why does Leon keep working for them despite knowing that they've done all these things behind the scenes? And I just can speculate that the reason is because he's trying to sort of change it from the inside out. which is why Adam was one of the good presidents as well as Graham, because Leon had that relationship with both of them. But still, the government was involved in a lot of sketchy shit. So, what is your opinion on the government in the series?
Well, honestly, it sounds American enough in real life to me, so there's nothing off base.
Oh yes, and I didn't even cover the fact that they knew about Arius's wedding and they bombed him simply because he was a terrorist. But they were like, I think Leon was like, "Oh, we're bombing families now? Okay, great." And so you can tell he doesn't agree with that as well.
But
It's like bet. And Simmons, NSA also bombed Raccoon City and tried to oppress Ada with that. So it is a lot of shit going on. And plus, they
the screens oppress an old woman, then there's Nuke City.
yeah, it's like, hey baby, you want to see this big red panic button right here? Well, here you go. All right, now be introduced to my bedroom.
Isn't that what we call ultimate res?
Yeah.
Oh,
Close
dear.
friends, baby. Let's go.
Oh dear.
Try to rizz her up with that nuclear bomb real quick.
Hey there, honey. Want to see my warhead? Oh dear.
Oh my god.
I can feel you dying from that one.
Sorry, I will stop applying the Britishisms. I seem to get more crude and sarcastic the sleepier I get.
Hey man, it happens. It happens. And the last thing I think I remember them doing, because on top of that, they kind of were colluding a little bit with Umbrella, so they have some biological weapons under their belt in terms of data, which is, it remains to be seen what they've been doing with that, but you can already tell that is not good news.
No. The thing I'm honestly most curious about, right, is the relationship with Leon here, because I believe it's implied in the original that he joined willingly, whereas it's outright stated in the remake that he was given no choice in the matter. So what?
You're half correct in both, but it was clarified in Resident Evil 3 itself and other adaptations of this particular storyline that Leon didn't necessarily have a choice in the matter.
Okay.
But in remake, yeah, they doubled down on blackmailing him and used Sherry as a weapon against him. So he literally had no other choice in both iterations of the story.
Yeah, in the beginning of the remake, there was that scene, and I saw this, and specifically in quotations, where he said, "I was asked to join the U.S. government," and the way he emphasized that just tells me that no, you weren't asked, you were forced to do it, because if you don't do what we say, we're gonna hand Shuri off to Wesker, and she's gonna get all types of infected, and she's gonna end up like Lisa Trevor. So I was like, you want that? It's like, nope. So he joined to save her and potentially Claire, even though Claire was like out of the area by that point. I would assume that he pulled some strings.
I knew about Claire being there.
Yeah, but I it's hard to say, because this is speculated on the Reddit, where it's like, okay, now there's another survivor of Raccoon City wandering around. Eventually the government might find out, do a little recruiting, but I would assume Leon had pulls like, oh well, I'll do it. I'll be your shepherd, and I'll be an agent for the US government and do whatever you want. Just leave all the people I care about alone. And
one thing too, like in Resident Evil 3, the original, when Claire's extra little indie thing, Leon told her to leave, right? But nothing in any lore afterwards stated that they knew about Claire.
Yeah,
they knew other survivors are around, but they didn't know it completely because she's already gone. Showed up the American base.
See, because it's unfortunately, because Capcom did not speculate what the government would do if they found other survivors, people are going to question why didn't they just go out and recruit them. Now I think for Claire's case, you can also make the excuse that because Chris was destroying Umbrella during this time, you wouldn't want to piss him off, so that's probably why they didn't even fuck with her and do that to begin with. So I think it's I think it's a combination of that, and you don't want to get Chris angry because at that point he's coming after you. So yeah.
And then they would have had to have asked the all important question: is the White House boulder-proof?
Yeah, that too. Yeah. So I think Leon just took the hit and he used his connections, and he's also trying to actively change a couple of things from the inside to be a little bit more peaceful and lighter. Because he even said to the President Bifford before he died, I don't think this is a good idea to tell these people about Raccoon City, otherwise we're gonna get like a giant panic from people. So
Oh,
Yeah, I
I'm glad
remember
you said
that.
that too, actually, because that was also a point Infinite Darkness that Claire failed to understand. If make it out there, it would cause more problems. So he had the information to himself.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Look, I like Claire. Claire stands. Look, it's fine. I like the character, but you gotta understand. I don't think it was right for you to agree with Claire saying that she should expose all that information to the world, because then you know how people are when they get news and information, they freak the fuck out. So, it would have just been a giant shit show at that point. Yeah.
If you look at how people responded when like there was like photographic evidence of what looked like UFOs, everyone was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
It's some situations where people don't care, or they turn it into a meme where it's like, I want to go to Area 51 and clap the cheeks of a giant alien. It's like, okay, I get that. But then,
God,
go get the alien boys.
but
man.
but then this is talking about moral panic of a giant outbreak that kind of affected thousands of lives. I think there would be differing reactions there. So it just is what it is. I don't think Claire should have it gave that information off to the public and then been mad at Leon about it for like several years.
Honestly, the government in the government in the Resident Evil essentially scope of things is doing what any real world government would probably do in this scenario. So it's wholly unsurprising that, and sadly we have a real life outbreak to use as a comparative benchmark, and there was a lot of panic and hysteria during that real life one, wasn't there?
Yeah.
There were
yeah.
also people who didn't take it seriously enough.
Yeah. And then they got sick, and then well, it's like bygones be bygones. Toilet
Just like
paper
Resident
gone.
Evil, man.
Yeah, so
toilet paper gone.
so I'm not surprised to hear that this version of the government is also corrupt, and they also are utilizing BOW knowledge to their benefit as well. But now they have this they have this new unit that Leon is in called DSO. So it's basically the same function as BSAA but different, except the president is now like ordering out means to get rid of biological weapons, which I guess that makes sense. It keeps Leon with something to do, and it's like he's just a sole agent of eliminating bioterrorism himself under the president. So I am not surprised by this progression, and that Hunnigan is still helping him, and that they have all these resources, but it still leaves a lot to wonder. What are they doing behind the scenes, because they've done so much corruption in the past?
Do you reckon we'll have a wider tie into future events, especially since, well, I know we're speaking hypotheticals, but you'd hope they would resolve the whole BSAA situation in a future installment? Do you reckon we could potentially tie that into a government conspiracy? It's just thoughts I'm bouncing around.
I mean, to be honest, that does make a lot of sense.
I think naturally the first question that people are gonna ask is, since they also have access to BOW data, what exactly are they doing with it, and does Leon know? Which I suppose the answer to that question is yes. Even if they haven't told us, he's got to know at this rate that they've been collecting that for years. So that is one of the many plot points that they do need to sort of resolve and fix in RE9, as well as the fact that, I mean, Shuri is still working under the government too, so what is she doing? It's a lot of questions to be answered that needs to be answered.
I mean, let's be honest, Leon's involvement in a lot of these operations will have probably directly or indirectly contributed to the American government obtaining a lot of this knowledge and information.
Yeah, and it also
it
it also leads to the fact of, are they gonna betray him or not? At this point though, since it's been like so many years, they haven't, but if they do RE9, I am going into that game under the impression that anything can happen and probably will, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
And
I'm
now
hoping.
I think about it, since we have so many loose ends, whatever, and so many moles inside the series, 9 would be a great way to close all those gaps up.
Yeah. It's like now we can finally see who is who. That's my main and just simple point. Like who is in charge behind the scenes now, because each game they tried to do a job in introducing all these new people. You see with RE6, the new president is Adam Benford, and you see all these other presidents or people behind the scenes that they tried to set up for Infinite Darkness. So I'm like, the games could kind of use a little bit of that going forward, but more motivation.
Yeah.
And that's all I gotta say on the U.S. government. Really, you can't trust them as far as you can throw them, but they can create super secret agents who can do suplexes on people.
The best suplexes.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, they need to find a way to upgrade from just suplexing and go the Chris route of punching boulders.
Power bombing.
Drop kick them.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, do a F5 on a zombie. That'll be pretty great, actually. Call it attitude adjustment.
Can we just do an Armica and throw them neck first off the ropes?
Yes, that will also apply as well. I wouldn't mind more Street Fighter moves.
Yeah, fine by me.
Hadouken.
Yeah.
All right, so
Justice for Charlie Nash.
Yes. So there's other organizations that weren't mentioned, and I pretty much don't have anything for this. I'm kind of all tuckered out. So is there anything that people wanted to mention from any other organizations we didn't cover?
Well, there is Veltro from Revelations.
I do remember them, Le Veltro.
Yeah, the ones who attacked Terra Grigia under the orders of Lonsdale so that he could justify the existence of the FBC.
Yep. I just know them because, well, oh my god, I hated Jack Norman, man. I swear to God.
I hated boss. Yeah, fucking hated it. And now
a goat.
Now I've freaking locked myself in to freaking playing through the game on my Switch on YouTube.
Oh,
and by the way,
God, you're doing the Switch version, aren't you?
I'm pretty sure my viewers want me to use motion controls as well.
Oh well, that's like Trouble in Paradise or Trouble in Hell, as I call it.
I'm gonna have a fun time.
I'm gonna specifically come into your chat now and make sure all of your people request motion controls. And considering we share an audience for many games, it's gonna be fun. Yeah.
No.
The only other group I wanted to mention is Hive Host Capture Force, because that was Wesker's original group before he dissolved it and tried to make his own umbrella. Then it moved to Tricell, but I think it's important because in the original betas, they were going to be responsible for the whole Ouroboros virus that was going on, which at that time they called it Progenitor, but it was going to evolve above that. So it's quite cool that they had a version of Wesker's group that actually was not umbrella based. It was just him carrying on what he made in Code Veronica, which was pretty interesting to say the least. But that's, for some reason, and this is just a funny comment, people were confused at the zombies in Code Veronica that had the red infrared mask on, and they were wondering, like, why are they all suited up like that? And like, those are Wesker's people that attacked the island, so that's, and of course they had like bombs on their back, which was probably the weirder thing, but I assume that was just their equipment malfunctioning and a grenade was hit or something, so that's why they blow up when you shoot them.
Yeah. There's also the 4 houses from Village.
Yeah. I just remember how it came and went, and that lore just sort of ended from there because I was like, oh, well,
Yeah, I just thought, this wouldn't be true Resident Evil of the modern day if we did not mention something to do with Lady Demetresque.
yeah.
They're also like they're literally the most. Sorry, but they're like the most one and done group, and we had in a while. So like, even if we brought them up though, not much we could really talk about other than their own individual characterizations.
Yeah, which we
like independently, they didn't necessarily affect the whole game because you only had one objective: grab the Vow and get the fuck out.
Yep.
The only character that had a bigger presence out of all of them would be Heisenberg.
Yes, but everyone would just focus on Lady D because of reasons.
Yeah, ladies.
they want to fap into a cup. So
I hate what Lady D did to this freaking fandom.
They got their cup fap on for a minute until they moved on to Ashley, which is quite funny because I just remember no one thought Ashley was attractive until the remake.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, not wrong.
Yeah,
move on to Ashley. Some of us never stopped.
Damn it.
I mean, a lot of people in the original Resident Evil 4 had looked up Ashley's skirt.
Oh my god, I do remember that.
Guilty as charged, my lord.
God
damn,
damn straight.
I think that's about it.
I just
for most of these that I see outside of Spec Ops. I thought Spec Ops was pretty cool in ORC, but not much to say about them really.
They're the same boat as the Umbrella guys. The characters just need to be in another game.
Yep. So we can sign off on this podcast. I'm gonna hear someone getting sleepy. It was like right on time.
Oh no! Yeah, it's like what 3 o'clock for
you? That is me.
Yeah, it's 3 hours. I think we've done enough so far. We covered pretty much all the major ones, and the rest is just side ones or other organizations that's not talked about much. But who knows? Maybe we'll talk about them during RE9. So,
I will say, like, I really just want that to be a Revelations 3.
Same.
Amen.
Been
you and me both. Yeah.
Asking for that for a while, and considering that Rebecca's right there, and you could probably do something with Billy because they were supposed to put him in Infinite Darkness, but they didn't. You have a game.
Shut off.
Look, part of the
could have been a supporting character.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is also because I just really love raid mode and I want it to come back.
Yeah, raid mode is a lot of fun.
I know.
But we're gonna do our outros now. Brandon, where can we find you?
You can find me on X at Immortal Brandle. I have a link tree in my bio. You can catch my other associations and whatnot. And yeah, I hate the name of X. Just call it Twitter, please, for love of God. Elon, bring it back.
It's just that's a terrible name for a website, but I digress. X videos. All right. You can find me on X at rentoperative_. God damn, I hate that name X, man. You can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative, and you can find me on Twitch at Renegade_operative. Silver, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Silver Gaming Network at YouTube. Please feel welcome to join us. We've been playing quite a bit of Quake and the new Quake 2 remaster, and we're gonna be starting on some Doom 2016 soon, so please join us. We're nearly 1,000 subs. And you can also find me on, oh my god, yes, you can find me on X at Silver Gaming Network. I hate it too, guys, I hate it. But yeah, Silver Gaming Network, or by following the handle SilverGaming01. I also pal around with Riolu as well, so you can find us both in the same place. Over to Riolu.
Well, you can find me under your bed, in the back of your car.
Whoa!
Wait,
I'm joking. Joking, obviously.
I'm unsubscribing.
You can find me on X at Divine Riolu. You can find me on YouTube at Divine Riolu because they added handles on YouTube now. You You can also find me on twitch.tv/DivineRaolu. And I think that's pretty much it.
All right, and I have to do a little plug and shout out for Tony, who goes by Sonic Kick. So I think you can just find him everywhere at Sonic Kick. He definitely not hard to find at all. Of course, YouTube streaming, X. He's on the X act as Sonic Kick, so you can find him there. I think it's Sonic Kick _ but you could just find him. And we're signing off on this podcast. Pretty much had a lot of fun with this one. A lot of interesting lore. It did go for 3 hours, but I think we had a swell time. So we're signing out. We will see you guys later out there on YouTube and Spotify land, and we will see you guys next time. Later.
Farewell.
Bye.
I'll go.
X videos.